Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this meeting of the full council. During the meeting today, I will be making rulings on process and conduct. During the meeting, I would also ask councillors to abide by the standing orders and the rules of debate. At certain times, I may seek guidance from my advisors, and we may need to adjourn. I will inform council of what is happening at the time and the time for us to reconvene. We all enjoy robust, respectful debate. At the last meeting, there were words and actions that I would consider fell short of the standards that we set ourselves. I would ask that all members to ensure that their words are respectful and their behaviour is exemplary. If members' speeches run over the allotted time, I will allow you to finish your sentence, but I will ask you to finish as quickly as possible. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind members that there is no local government equivalent of parliamentary privilege. Members will therefore be liable to any defamatory statements that they make. If you wish to speak during the meeting, I would ask that you raise your hand and wait until I invite you to speak. If you wish to communicate with other individual councillors during the meeting, please do so by paper or electronic means. Please do not do it verbally. Raise any points of order verbally, and I will then pause the meeting to deal with the point of order. When raising the point of order, please state the procedure, rule, or law you believe has been breached. All votes will be conducted via the electronic voting system today. If we receive any amendments to the recommendations before council today, I will adjourn to ensure all members have adequate time to read the amendment. Thank you. Right, I move to item number 1, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Excuse me. Through you, Lord Mayor, we've received apologies from Councillor Bingley, Councillor Partridge, Councillor Cree, Councillor Poyser, Councillor Riley and Councillor Rennie.
Councillor Patel.
Lord Mayor, Councillor Darcy may join us later.
Thank you very much. Are there any other apologies? No. Okay. I move on to item number 2 of the agenda, declarations of interests. Can members make it known by raising their hands, please, if they have any private or disclosable pecuniary interests in any of the matters on today's agenda? My advisor will take a record of interests declared. Thank you, members.
Councillor Stevens.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to declare a private interest under 8B, which is my own item, but I dare say my employers will be mentioned at some course during the debate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Okay. Moving on to appointment number 4, appointments to committees, outside bodies and council proportionality. Please could I ask council to note the changes to committee membership in line with the allocations set out in the order paper. Deputy Councillor Beer, could I ask you please not to converse in here without putting your hand up? I'm quite happy to take your questions and give you an opportunity to speak, but chatting in between individual councillors is not good for the councillors to be able to concentrate on the business in hand, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to listen to the business in hand here. So please...
Lord Mayor, on a point of order.
Yes, Councillor Nicholson.
So on the rules of debate set out in the Constitution, when speaking to the council, obviously those rules of debate apply. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that you couldn't converse to the councillor sitting next to you in a quiet manner may be to elicit some other information. So what you read out at the beginning, Lord Mayor, with the greatest respect, is evolving the Constitution over and above the current Constitution as agreed by members.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson, for your comments. However, my ruling here is that people chatting in council will disturb the other councillors around them. You must give other councillors around them the opportunity to listen to the debate in hand. So this is all about respect and appropriate debate. Okay, so it's trying to give those councillors in here who do wish to listen to the debate the opportunity to listen to that debate and not be disturbed by other conversations going on within the chamber. Thank you very much. Right, so please God, I ask Council to note the changes to committee membership in line with the allocation set out in the order paper. Deputy Lord Mayor, can you second the motion?
Second the motion, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to speak? Okay, changes are noted. Thank you. Right, okay. Members, I now move to item number 4, questions from the members of the public. The first question was from Jan Miller, who is unable to join us today and has asked Miss Linda Harding to ask a question. So, Miss Harding, would you like to stand and, if you're able, and please pose the question?
Thank you. Armada-way costs have escalated to 36.8 million, funded by council borrowing. What are the implications of the interest payments on this loan over the period of the loan, on the revenue budget, and how has this been evaluated and scrutinised in the budget setting exercise? Thank you.
Right, I think we have here Councillor Lowry to respond. Councillor Lowry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for your question. For clarity, we have not yet confirmed the final cost of this project, and the recommendation from the 19th of February's Cabinet directed the Strategic Director for Place to undertake all necessary steps to confirm the final construction cost for the approved Armada Way design and to report back to a subsequent meeting of a Cabinet for approval. Once we have received this report, we will agree the funding allocation as necessary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lowry. The second question concerns the filing of records with the National Archive. Mr. Alloway, would you like to ask a question?
Parklands was a children's home that was run by DCC from 1968 until the closure in the mid-80s. In 1998, a transfer of social care responsibility meant that PCC became the responsible body. National Archives for Parklands have not been updated since 1971. Who is currently responsible for depositing and updating records for this establishment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Alloway. I believe Councillor Lang, would you like to respond?
I am, Lord Mayor, and forgive me, I'm going to still sit down. I'm hoping I'll be able to stand up properly by the next meeting. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Alloway. Following Plymouth City Council becoming a unitary authority, the individual files of Plymouth children who had been in care, but whose cases were by this time closed, remained the responsibility of Devon County Council. The files of those children remaining in care or otherwise still open to children's social care at the time Plymouth became a unitary authority are retained by Plymouth City Council in line with our document retention policy. There is no obligation to deposit information of this nature with the National Archives. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. The third question relates to the drainage works in Tamerton and is from Councillor Oram from the South Hams District Council. Councillor Oram, would you like to ask your question, please?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you for that very warm welcome. The drainage works on the corner of Allen and Linton Roads, Tamerton, commissioned by Plymouth City Council, I'm told. The works have taken so long that vegetation is now growing out of the offending collapsed drain, and when the area floods and freezes, this road is dangerous to my residents as well as yours. Will the relevant member and possibly a ward member meet with me and residents to discuss this? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oram. In response, Councillor Coker, would you like to...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Oram. The road in question is not within Plymouth City Council boundaries, but I and a ward colleague are more than happy to meet you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coker. That concludes questions from members of the public. Thank you very much. I move to item number 5, which is announcements. Jeremiah's Journey. Councillors, today one of my charities, Jeremiah's Journey, are present to raise money for an important cause. Jeremiah's Journey is a remarkable bereavement charity based in Plymouth. It plays a vital role in supporting children, young people and their families during a challenging and emotional time. When a loved one passes away or faces a terminal illness, Jeremiah's Journey steps in to provide a compassionate assistance. Their work revolves around grieving children and their families, recognising that everybody's experience is unique. From pre-bereavement to support, to helping families cope with loss. Jeremiah's Journey strives for excellence in all their aspects of their mission. Through creative approaches and unwavering dedication, they guide families through difficult and uncertain moments, ensuring no one feels alone in their grief. They will be here during tea this afternoon. I beseech you, please give generously, and they do have a card machine. Moving on, the 2024 citywide Enough campaign created by Trevi. Trevi has launched a powerful citywide campaign called Enough. This initiative aims to combat gender-based violence and raise awareness about the urgent need to end violence against women and girls. Over the past 5 years, domestic abuse incidents in Plymouth have been on the rise, accounting for 27% of all violent crimes in the city, higher than the national average of 16%. The campaign's message is straightforward: enough. Trevi collaborates with various organisations, including Plymouth City Council, the NSPCC, Devon and Cornwall Police, First Light, the MAN Culture, Plymouth Domestic Abuse Services and Plymouth NHS Trust. Councillors, colleagues from Trevi are here today to seek your support in ensuring this campaign reaches all corners of our city. During the tea break, there'll be a photo opportunity for councillors who wish to be photographed with the Trevi team. Thank you very much. Youth Parliament. On Wednesday, I attended the Youth Parliament election results evening, along with some of the colleagues who are here in the chamber. Plymouth Youth Parliament enables young people aged 11 to 18 years across the city to come together once a week to enable us to use the energy and passion to change the world for a better place. Plymouth elects 2 members and 2 deputy members of the Youth Parliament every February. Candidates campaign on issues important to them, such as mental health, awareness, and of job opportunities. It was a great pleasure to meet the young people and to hear of all their experiences and of their campaigning And I would like to congratulate Rocky, who has campaigned for a reduction in public transport costs for students, and Eden, who has campaigned for an increased support and funding for deprived families. Mason, who wished to raise awareness of men's mental health to remove stigma and change negative views and raise awareness of the issues that young men now face and how it affects them, and also to promote a positive role model. And finally, Sienna, who wished to work with schools to address violence against girls and promote healthy relationships. I would like to congratulate all candidates that took part this year and the successful candidates on this year's election. This chamber will wish them all the best. And I invite you for a round of applause for those that got through. Thank you. Right, moving on now to leaders' announcements. Over to yourself, leader.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In May last year, the people of Plymouth spoke out. They spoke out at polling stations. They spoke out by voting for a Labour administration. And one can only guess at the reasons why. After 14 years of the Conservatives, what have they got to show for it? They've failed on the economy, failed on public services, failed on living standards. They've brought in political chaos nationally. We have had 5 prime ministers, although if the polls are to be believed or the press reports, we may have a 6th on the way, Mr. Shapps, or whatever he's calling himself. We've had 7 different chancellors, Lord Mayor, countless other changes in ministers. Locally, as you know, we have seen 3 different Conservative leaders. So what were the people of Plymouth tired of? Was it the infighting? Was it the backstabbing that seemed to take place on this very floor? Take your pick. Instead, they voted for stability. They voted for a plan. And we listened and we delivered. The people in Plymouth put their trust in this Labour administration.
Point of order.
Leader, we've got a point.
Or is this a diatribe of the Conservative Party over the last year? This is not an announcement.
Councillor Stoneman, your point of order is based around which rule?
Not following the agenda and not on the point of order that is being talked about on the agenda.
Leader, to yourself.
Thank you. Instead, they voted for stability. They voted for a plan, and we listened and we delivered. The people in Plymouth have put their trust in this Labour administration, and we have worked hard to deliver against the priorities that matter to everyone and continue to do so. Jobs, affordable homes, feeling safe, finding an NHS dentist, supporting the elderly, looking after children at risk of harm, looking after our roads and improving bus services. Not only will we continue to do all of those things, we will continue to support people who need help during this cost of living crisis. We all know that fuel, food and rent have all gone up, and Plymouthans are still suffering the catastrophic effects of the Conservative budget under Liz Truss. As soon as we took control of the council in May last year, we created a cost of living action plan. You'll hear about that again in a minute. And that was designed to support and signpost residents who are finding life more and more difficult under this Conservative government, which has created the biggest tax burden in 70 years. And we are continuing to ensure investment in this city. We secured £1.3 million of funding for a programme of works at Mill Bay Docks. This will see more ships, more cargo, more business, more growth and less carbon. We secured nearly 20 million to regenerate the city by accelerating the Freeport, the National Marine Park, and the Net Zero Vision. We received 11.6 million funding boost from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is helping us to deliver the UK's first national marine park. We have won 50 million for the Civic Centre residential redevelopment. We have won 25 million for Brickfields for a sports-led regeneration. We have won 80 million for the Brunel Plaza regeneration scheme. The list of funding we have secured for Plymouth goes on and on and on, and we get this money because of the proven track record of this council, this Labour council, for delivery. But it doesn't end there. We will continue to maximise the unique opportunity in Plymouth by working with Babcock and the Royal Navy to ensure the most sustained period of defence investment in this city's history. Skills is a major focus of this administration, which is why we announced this very morning in Cabinet the Civic Centre Skills Hub, the largest investment in skills for a decade in this city, and in green and blue skills, which for the opportunities that are being created in this city, we want local people to have first dibs. And we do that by making sure there are training opportunities, that we don't just talk about it, but we actually make those skills opportunities available. And I'm really grateful to City College for turning up this morning and exciting everybody with their plans for so many new courses, so many new students, 2,000 a year in the heart of our city centre. A boost not just to City College, who've been searching for an opportunity in the city centre for quite some time, but to the very things that we said we wanted to see, an expansion of opportunities in Britain's Ocean City, in the marine sector, in the blue sector, and they will help us to deliver that. And we've got all these other opportunities, Lord Mayor, which we're creating in Langage, in Sherford, in Derriford, and yes, in the city centre. We are prioritising the regeneration of the city centre. And we will be working with Homes England on major interventions in housing in the city centre, bringing back life to the city centre that had to disappear to the suburbs in our post-war regeneration. The £2.5 billion in defence investment is going to be very significant. But what is even more significant is the potential that gives us for building off the back of it. And in this city council, we are also helping to deliver a pipeline of regeneration opportunities, £1 billion and counting, Lord Mayor. And of course, we've secured 200 million of economic development projects over the next few years, a metronomic clicking away of £3 million a week for the foreseeable future of investment in our city. Not just words, but deeds. None of it's come easy. As I've said on one or two occasions in this chamber, Lord Mayor, we don't get anything in Plymouth for nothing. We have to work for every pound we get. But this just goes to show how much this council, under a Labour administration, has convinced not just previous Labour governments, but this Tory government as well, that we mean it, and that a pound spent with us is a pound that we will deliver. So to the public I say, you put our trust in us last May. We've worked so hard to deliver on your priorities. So let us keep working on our ambitious plans to make Plymouth the best place to grow up and grow old. And we will build a better Plymouth, not only for ourselves here today, but for future generations. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do any other Cabinet members have any announcements? If so, please. Yeah, we got. First one is Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On Saturday, the 23rd of March, we will be celebrating a really spectacular evening. It's the Celebrating Excellence in Care Awards, which looks at the very best staff working within the adult social care sector of the city. including those who work in care homes, supported living, those who deliver domiciliary care, and those who provide daycare. People across the city were invited to put forward nominations to recognise the dedication and the enthusiasm of staff and their teams. There were a variety of awards up for grabs, such as Innovation in Partnerships and Engagement, Care Worker of the Year, Excellence in Dementia Care, Volunteer of the Year, and this one sounds really quite interesting, Rising Star, and also Service User Stories. So I'm looking forward to going along, and I believe the Deputy Lord Mayor and Consort are attending as well. But it's something we really need to be proud of. And linked with that, you'll all remember that I launched the Caring Plymouth. There's actually a showcase of careers in health and social care, which is going to be on Friday the 19th of April at the Duke of Cornwall Hotel. And we know that people are interested. We know there's a weekly session in one of the banks in the city centre looking for people who want to change careers, who want to know a bit more about working within the caring profession. So I'm hoping we're going to see a good number of people come to this and realise how essential it is and how they can give their career a change and do something really, really, really worthwhile by helping Plymouth out. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to start with the box and talk about Planetation, the exhibition which opened on Saturday, which I went along to, and it was packed already, which was brilliant. It's brilliantly curated, and a good deal of what's on show there has come from the box's collection. It explores pivotal moments in our past and present relationship with the sea, and I really recommend you go and see it. We're also celebrating the 250,000th visitor to the box, well ahead of schedule, which is an amazing milestone, and huge congratulations to all the team at the box. I also want to talk about the Ofsted inspection, which you'll have seen was published last Friday. They published the findings of the full inspection of our children's services, which took place in January. And I'm pleased to say that inspectors found that significant improvements had been made since their focused visit to the service's front door at the end of 2022. I'd like to thank all of the staff in children's services and across the council who've worked so hard to bring about the improvements identified in the report. And I'm particularly pleased that Ofsted fed back that we know ourselves well, we know our areas of strength, and we know our areas for improvement. And we have ambitious plans in place to continue to improve and transform the service. There were many positives highlighted in the report, including the work taking place to ensure that children and young people get the support they need to help them stay safe. That staff work hard to support children to enable them to stay living with their parents wherever possible. Children and young people who are in care live with people who work hard to do their best for them, and when they're ready to leave care, the right support is in place. It's clear that there is more work to do to ensure that all our children and young people receive a consistently good service, and we're working to achieve this at pace with the focused support of our committed staff. We're determined to continue to improve our services and deliver better outcomes, because that's what Plymouth children need and that's what Plymouth children deserve. The report outlines that improvements are needed in some areas, including the response to concerns for children out of office hours, the effectiveness of some aspects of joint working across the council and with partner agencies, including housing, health, schools and education providers. The quality and availability of accommodation for children and young people, and the timeliness of health assessments for children in care, something which we are monitoring very closely through the corporate parenting group. Children's Services is supporting more children and families now than ever before, and that's why we've invested an additional £8 million in children's services in the next financial year against a national context of no additional government funding. So I want to pass on my heartfelt personal thanks to everybody who works in the service, who works every day to put our children and young people first, who supported this inspection and who I know will work so hard to deliver the improvements identified. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. Councillor Bryarsdale.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This time last year, Plymouth Labour pledged that we would prioritise cleaner streets across the city. I just wanted to take a moment to update Council on how we as an administration have been delivering on that promise over the last year. Firstly, we've been investing in high-quality equipment. Most recently, that involved several brand new street sweepers. Each machine can collect up to 4 tonnes of debris, and the fleet now has the capacity to clean up to 150 miles a day. We've also been rolling out a cold scrub machine specifically for the city centre. Secondly, we've set up dedicated neighbourhood clean teams to make rounds more structured, whilst giving staff more familiarity and pride in the areas they're responsible for. We've added a new Barrow operative round, reworked rounds in various parts of the city, and we're now looking to do the same in Estover, in Maidstone, in Liam, in St Budo, and in North Prospect. Thirdly, we've strengthened commonsensical policies to tackle fly tipping, ensuring that when specific items are reported on a service lane, that officers inspect the rest of that alleyway and collect other items that they notice too. We've been identifying fly tipping hotspots, particularly in back alleyways, for additional CCTV to catch people in the act and help enforcement. We'll continue to work hard with council officers, with partner organisations and with community groups for a cleaner city that we're all proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bryarsdale. Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm delighted to inform you that following a successful application to the Apprenticeship Provider and Assessment Register, the local authority will commence delivering apprenticeships throughout our highly successful adult education provider, Encore South West team. The training and skills landscape is changing, and as a key employer in the city, we have critical skills needs that need to be addressed. Our initial focus will be on youth work, early years, special educational needs and disabilities, SEND, and to serve our internal training requirements, working alongside colleges and training providers. Our work will continue to increase the number of citywide supported internship placements with a new focus on supported apprenticeships to create a new pathway for SEND young people. And last week, we issued an external communication in celebrating that we'd achieved an impressive 60 internship placements, up 4 placements in the last month and up 51 placements in the last 12 months. As a city, we are currently outperforming counties in terms of the number of placements, but within 24 hours of the comms going out, 9 parents contacted the team direct to secure a supported internship for their young person, and the teams are supporting those families to secure placements. In fact, an hour after that, it'd gone up to 12, so they were coming in thick and fast. We have aspiration to raise this to 100 placements across the city, and this really does feel achievable following a successful SEND employment summit, which I was fortunate enough to be able to introduce the speakers. We heard from John, who undertook a supported internship, is now in a highly paid employment as a planning engineer. Following the summit, we've been overwhelmed with offers of support and placements, which the team are following up on. That's great support and interest from our employers. Kieran, a supported internship placement within the Skills and Post 16, organised the city's first supported internship celebration event, which was held on the 8th of March. This was the first time all the supported internships could come together across the city. It was an event organised by the young people, and they had a fabulous time playing indoor golf at the Barcode. I would point out that I was invited to that, but we did actually have the budget on that day, so I couldn't go. But I'm hoping to be there next time. I'm also delighted to announce the city's first personalised careers and education guide, Green Horizons, which clearly articulates the green pathways in the city's personalised with local training and local businesses and local jobs. A training directory will be released in the coming weeks. This puts all the green careers and understandings in the guide. It puts it in one place. It helps in terms of jargon busting. There's a really clear glossary. It gives examples of jobs in things like creative industries, digital, defence, marine renewables and ports, medical health and life sciences. Basically, we know that there are so many jobs out there that we just don't know about, and making sure that we communicate them successfully. This sets everyone straight, and straightforward language and clear examples. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cresswell. Councillor Dan.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I didn't realise I was going to be next on your list. I just want to talk very briefly about the cost of living, because the plan has been going since last August. It's been a really sobering plan when I tell you some of the figures about people who have accessed the hub. So we set up a brand new hub and a website, and over the last 7 months, 29,000 people have visited the website. And what is really sad is that nearly half of them, nearly 14,000, accessed it through the Household Support Fund. For those people who don't know what the Household Support Fund does, it supports families, particularly those who are entitled to free school meals, during the school holidays. It's also been targeted towards families in crisis through children's social care. It's also targeted people at risk via homelessness through community connections, and also targeted for people fleeing domestic abuse, as well as helping carers and people with disabilities. We know from the last budget that that Household Support Fund has only got another 6 months to last. It's going to have a massive impact on the vulnerable families that we have across the city. The cost of living hub and the way we sold it was around communication. So besides those 29,000 people who accessed information through the hub, we also made sure that we put a paid advert into the Plymouth Chronicle in all 4 editions across the city. Every month, so that's 92,000 homes where we were able to share a different element of the cost of living support that we've done to help support families. We've really tried to make sure that we've targeted that support as well. So during the course of the year, we've done lots of awareness on loan sharks, help with energy costs, household bills, mental health support, how to be warm. We've had 70 warm spaces again across the city, how to offer debt support and support for families directly in ways of helping with free school meals, the uniform school. But of course, life also has to be fun as well. So of that, we've had so many hits on the free things to do for school. So things like the box, we kept Mount Wise free. We did £1 swims at the Life Centre and at Plymouth Pool. And I want to also take it as an opportunity just to say thank you to all the people across the city who have taken part. Because although it was facilitated by the City Council, we could not have done it without all our volunteer organisations and people like the Citizens Advice Bureau who have helped direct and support health. So that's a big, big thank you. It's not often I talk about the other part of my portfolio, which is sport and leisure, but I do want to say that we have got an Active to Thrive conference at the Life Centre tomorrow. So being active is a really important part of city life. We know that if we can get people to be active and move around and access blue and green spaces, it's really, really good for their health and well-being. But we also know that we've got to take some pride. So we've done a lot of investment this year in the brick fields, but we also want to make sure that we can support people who want to be elite sports people of the future. So at the conference tomorrow, we do have Swim England and Sport England represented, because we want to make sure that not only do we support residents to be healthy just to move, we also want to make sure that we can support our residents to be able to access elite sports and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dan. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to briefly shine a light on a small team that rarely gets any attention. Community Connections are responsible for the delivery of major adaptations in Plymouth, and the Disabled Facilities Grant Team, comprising of 4 officers, a technical lead and 1 operational manager, work with people of all ages in support of both adult and children's social care, housing associations and the NHS. Supporting city residents to remain independent, reducing care needs and maintaining dignity are key drivers for the delivery of disabled facilities grants. And between 1st of April 23 and the 31st of January 24, over 285 individual pieces of work comprising of extensions, new bathrooms and kitchens, stair lifts, external ramps, platform lifts, and much more have been delivered. This is an average of 1.35 adaptations completed every single working day of this municipal year. It should be noted that while we complete an adaptation, many residents get more than one, and as such, the service has completed and closed 204 cases so far this year. That's 204 households who have been able to continue to live in their own home because of the work of this team. Whilst demand across the service remains very high, the team remain motivated to drive these figures higher before the end of the financial year and have a full programme of work in front of them to achieve this. This is a team that quietly beavers away to make a transformational difference to the lives of Plymouth residents that they work with. And I'm sure that you and fellow members will join me in thanking them for their work. Lord Mayor, today I'm pleased to announce that the new Resettlement Support Service contract has been awarded and will be delivered by a partnership made up of 5 local organisations: PATH, Plymouth Access to Housing; START, Students and Refugees Together; the Odils Learning Foundation; Plymouth and Devon Racial Equality Council; and Devon and Cornwall Refugee Support. Plymouth has a long and proud history of accepting and settling people who arrive as a response to worldwide conflicts. We have participated in a number of Home Office resettlement schemes, enabling a safe passage for many of the most vulnerable people fleeing conflict and persecution. We continue our commitment to resettle people arriving to the UK on safe and legal routes for humanitarian purposes, and this service will help those people to become part of the communities in Plymouth, building on their aspirations and strengths through a wide range of support, from language and employment skills through to housing and well-being support. The continuation of this service over the coming 5 years consolidates our commitment to equality and diversity and to community cohesion, and I'm looking forward to seeing the positive impact of this partnership on the communities they serve, as well as the wider community of Plymouth. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Do any other Cabinet members have any announcements? Any committee chairs have any announcements that they wish to make? Thank you very much. Right, we move on now to item number 5, which is the Net Zero Action Plan. Councillor Briers-Delve, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to present the Net Zero Action Plan for 2024 to 27. We always knew that the path to net zero would not be an easy one, and that we could not do this on our own. But it's a path on which we've already taken some significant steps. Since the Climate Emergency Declaration in 2019, as a City Council, we have invested over £200 million in net zero infrastructure and sustainable transport projects, installed about 500 Beryl e-bikes, purchased about 60 electric vehicles for our fleet, and delivered a programme of renewable energy installations on 12 of our most major buildings, leading to 660 tonnes of carbon savings. Lord Mayor, that is just a handful of some of the things we have done, but let's focus more on the future than the past. I very much welcome the strategic commitments in last year's NZAP for the Council's own corporate journey. That included fleet decarbonisation, corporate estate retrofitting, and solar energy, to name a few. These were the right priorities for us as an organisation, and we continue to work hard to deliver on them. However, my additional focus for next year will lie even more in the challenging other side of our climate emergency declaration. That is the city as a whole. As a council, we're directly responsible for a tiny fraction of the city's wider emissions, but we have a pivotal role in influencing and convening both residents and organisations. That's exactly why we've added 19 new commitments to the behaviour change section of this new NZAP. As former teachers, myself, Councillor Cresswell, and also Emmanuel, who's been doing a great job coordinating this document, really wanted to start with education. To inspire the next generation, we will encourage every single school in this city to seek eco-school accreditation or participate in the Let's Go Zero national campaign. I will personally collaborate with the Youth Parliament and appoint a Youth Climate Advisor to influence policy development for what is, after all, their future. On transport, we'll be piloting active travel social prescribing, which will also support people's health and well-being. We'll help the public transition to electric vehicles by establishing a new EV car club, installing hundreds of charging points, working alongside the taxi trade, and crucially, we want to see zero-emission buses here in Plymouth. Other major cities have them, why shouldn't we? Buildings are another big emitting sector. We need a far better understanding of the efficiency of our current city's housing stock so that targeted interventions can be coordinated. We'll be working in partnership with PEC and housing associations to alleviate fuel poverty in social homes, whilst giving energy advice through our community hubs and, crucially, to private landlords. One of my personal priorities for next year is on heat network development, which is desperately needed to allow large numbers of homes to move away from fossil fuels whilst reducing energy bills. I suggested in last year's debate that the previous NZAP was a bit quiet on food, despite the sector causing a third of the UK's wider emissions. As part of the Food Plymouth Partnership, we're going to seek to improve access to local, low-carbon food choices and work towards the Sustainable Food Places Gold Award, which has so far only been achieved by 2 cities across the UK. And this is a big one. Right from last May, I was clear with Street Services that we want this administration to be ready to deliver long-awaited curbside food waste collections, which will drive up our recycling rate by reducing how much food gets unnecessarily tossed away. I hope you'll agree that these are all ambitious, future-facing commitments, a radical step up towards a greener, healthier, and more prosperous Plymouth. Lord Mayor, I formally move the recommendations that the Net Zero Action Plan for 2024 to 27 is supported and endorsed by this Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bryce-Delve. Councillor Stoneman, I gather you're seconding the report.
Yes, and I'd like to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Right. Has anybody got anything that they would like to say? Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This Net Zero Action Plan is an excellent example of strong cross-party working, with excellent expert work from officers and a real drive from the Cabinet member. Within our local limits, this plan is sound. But what is important is to remind ourselves of the threat that we face. Not meeting our carbon reduction targets is recognised within our own risk register as high level, and with good reason. We are already witnessing the consequences of climate change at home and on the global stage. We see more frequent severe weather events such as storms, floods, heat waves and droughts. Our rivers and seas are dying. Plant and animal species are going extinct at an alarming rate. The cost of not addressing the problem on a human level is unimaginable, with loss of lives, disruption to communities, and fighting for increasingly scarce resources likely. Financially, climate change is predicted to cost the world up to 19 trillion over the next 36 years. Costs associated with addressing rising sea levels could cost Europe alone 748 billion by the year 2100. We urgently need proper commitment and investment from government to allow us to do more at a local level. The current government's policies and actions have not been aligned with the scale of the crisis, and in many cases have been detrimental to progress. From their continued support for fossil fuel industries through subsidies, tax breaks, approvals for new oil and gas exploration projects, to lack of progress made towards home insulation, green energy, transportation, the list goes on really, the Conservative government are not offering the climate leadership we desperately need them to. And not to miss the opportunity to hold Labour's feet to the fire a little bit on this. The abandonment of their keystone £28 billion green investment pledge has left many feeling hopeless about our ability to tackle the climate crisis. This issue is the biggest crisis of our time. It doesn't care about party politics, but parties, governments, and local authorities have a key role and responsibility in ensuring a just transition to a net zero economy. We need to ensure this plan succeeds, just as we need to keep our sights set on pushing for national and international progress. Climate change is real, it is here, and it's getting worse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Macleay. Councillor Penrose.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I very much welcome the Council's Net Zero Action Plan. Public concern for climate change has reached an all-time high. Climate change is here with the excessive rainfall we've been experiencing, numerous named storms, then dangerous summer droughts. Our challenge is to transform that concern into change. According to the sixth carbon budget, while 41% of the emission reduction required to achieve net zero will be technological, 59% must be down to behavioural change. And we in Plymouth know how very important it is to involve people in the decisions that really matter to them. We know that in this city, as around the world, community-involved, co-produced decisions improve the quality of our solutions. And when we look at our plan, we find that of those 6 priorities, number 5 is to engage the whole city in the net zero mission. In the background paper to the action plan, it highlights the new ways that we want to engage the city. Individual organisations in all sectors must be involved with their own plans and pledges. And this need for change also applies to councillors. To complete the recent carbon literacy course we all undertook, we were required to make 2 pledges, one regarding our own individual behaviour and the other something that would involve other people. I've believed in climate change in that it's everyone's business for a very long time. In the 1980s, I ran a development and environmental education centre in Cambridge, and I was then inspired, I don't know if anyone else was, by Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was then Prime Minister of Norway, and she described sustainable development as meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This became the basis of Agenda 21, a blueprint for the 21st century, which was presented to the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio. At that point, I was working as head of policy at Save the Children, and I remember the great expectations we had of Rio. Yet here we are, almost a quarter of the way through the 21st century, and the challenge to reverse the effects of climate change is more daunting than ever. And a new generation has had to come along to hold us to account. We have to be constantly reminded that we do not inherit the earth, but we borrow it from our children. And I remember anxiously watching Greta Thunberg sail out of Plymouth on her way to the USA a couple of years ago because she pledged not to fly. So my climate pledge, I've committed myself to work with the residents of Compton to produce our own approach to the city's net zero action plan. This will be a pilot event for collaborating on neighbourhood level community action. I'm delighted that the headmaster of our primary school, Compton Church of England Primary School, has said we can use the school to have our first meeting on the 18th of May. Council officers at the moment are working on facts and figures that will help our discussion. This is for Compton, Manamede, Mutley and Hartley. And we'll be thinking in those discussions about positive practices, how we travel, how we heat our homes, what we eat, what we buy, what we throw away. We'll be thinking about what we can do as individuals, what we can do as a group, and what we must depend on others like the council for to make things work. So Councillor Bryce-Delve will introduce the action plan, but the focus will be the community level. There's nothing that we can teach the people who look after Tulgey Woods or the people who set up Collings Park Trust. There's nothing we can teach them about conserving our environment for everybody to enjoy, but we can all learn from their experience and share their ideas. And that's what we'll be doing. We'll be coming together to answer the question, how do we tackle climate change as a community? So we hope we can bring together old people, young people, the youth parliament's going to come along, so everybody is welcome, so that we can look at how, by being part of the ecosystem, we can protect it. And there'll be some coffee and cake there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penrose. Can I just congratulate you on, firstly, an excellently timed speech, but also, members, that's Councillor Penrose's maiden speech. So, well done. We now move on to Councillor Lugger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On a slightly lighter note, there was an ode song by Max Bygraves years ago called Things Ain't What They Used to Be. Your mother probably told you about it, Lord Mayor, and so did mine. One of the lyrics said, there were trams, not very quick, but they got you from A to B. Well, certainly trams were a green form of transport long since gone. The second part of the lyric goes, there are no jams half a mile long. To save the human race, I am walking. Now that is a poignant set of words. We are all doing our bit for net zero. We must continue to do this. Certainly it is a major Conservative policy at national level, and what I would urge all members to realise is that climate change affects every Plymouthian. Every aspect of the community is affected by it. So I thank Councillor Bryce-Delve for that plan. It's well written, very interesting to read, and let's all endorse it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lugger. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suppose it's important to mention that business is going to have an important part to play. We'll be implementing a net zero business support programme to reach out to local organisations trying to do the right thing. A Marine Innovation Centre, Oceans Gate, will provide usable space for business to innovate in net zero and marine sectors as well. And we'll be supporting the delivery of a 10 megawatt green hydrogen plant. Our Cabinet is united on driving a just transition towards green jobs, exemplified by our Cabinet decision this morning, as I earlier mentioned, working with City College to transform the bottom floors of the Civic Centre into a leading green and blue skills campus.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I also back this Zero Action Plan as somebody that has also achieved my carbon literacy qualification and made my pledges to reduce my carbon footprint. I feel that we should all be supporting it. Councillor Stevens already is aware of a suggestion that I've made prior to the publication of the action plan, which interestingly I note in the plan we mention councillors, but we don't mention much about what councillors could be doing to support it. My suggestion to Councillor Stevens was regarding our barrel bikes and the use of those. You know, the barrel bikes are there and available for us to use. My suggestion was, how could we encourage our councillors to make use of them during their daily meetings to go from A to B. We've all got barrel bikes in all of our communities. So is there any way that we can use those, perhaps an incentive to encourage us to get out there? Having tried to use them last week to get back from the Sherwood Church event, which was the International Women's Day, I will say I was a bit sad to find that the one I tried to use was out of use, and the one that the next bank had no barrel bikes there. So unfortunately, it was my having to go by foot to hot foot it back here to the council chamber for our budget meeting. So, you know, what can we do to try and support each other? Okay, so yes, we need helmets. I've got mine in my car ready, but we could all be out there and role modelling to our public, our members of the public, our residents, the use of barrel bikes by getting on them ourselves and pedalling around them more often. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given that PEC has been mentioned, could I register a personal interest as I sit on 5 of the PEC family boards? Lord Mayor, I welcome the plan and the opportunity to be involved in its development. There are a couple of areas that I would specifically like to highlight. This NZAP is the first to have such a strong focus on community activity and behaviour. I'm pleased to say that we're able to look at how we work with personal and community level activity, support positive changes through programmes we already have up and running. So, as Councillor Harrison will know, wearing her day job hat, I've already begun work with the team of community builders to look at how they can support the NZAP and get key messages out into communities across the city. And I'm pleased to say they're eager to get stuck in. I'm also pleased that we've been working with Food Plymouth, Fair Share and other partners, not only on achieving gold status, but also to look at practical ways in which we can be a more sustainable food city that ensures that cost of living issues are tackled and our most vulnerable communities are able to access not only food, but good quality and healthy food. Our new food co-ops are one of the ways in which we're already making a difference, and there are more plans in the pipeline. Lord Mayor, last week I was pleased to present the 4th iteration of Plan for Homes to Cabinet for approval, and I'm pleased that they approved it. This version identifies tackling climate change as a key cross-cutting theme in all areas of our 6 key work programmes, from retrofit to new build low and zero carbon housing, from tackling damp and mould to environmental improvements. We're already starting activity and looking now at how we can do more and do it faster in support not only of Plan for Homes, but also of the new NZAP. Lord Mayor, I congratulate Councillor Brian Stelv on the work he's done to pull so many people together in discussions to build the new NZAP and to strengthen Plymouth's approach to tackling the climate emergency. He should be commended, and I'm happy to support his motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Down.
Just to build a little bit on what we've managed to achieve as a council, for those of you who have read the report, you will know that it was actually 5 years today, actually on the same date, that we brought the first emergency climate declaration to the council. And since then, there has been excellent cross-working. We had the Climate Emergency Action Plan, which I started, then Maddie took up, and then James started with the Net Zero Action Plan, and now Tom's bringing this plan today. And it has worked really well. But my plea is to follow on from what Councillor Harrison has just said. Because this decade is, I quote Tom on this, pivotal in working towards that net zero position. And over the next 5 or 6 years, there are going to be decisions that have to be taken in this council that need to have cross-party support because they're not going to be easy. I'm going to give you one that I bought here, which was just about increasing the amount of green space for biodiversity across the city to 40% 3 years ago. I was castigated for doing it by people who sat in this council. And yet today, that policy has been held up so many times as a policy of real innovation and moving the green of the city forwards. Now we've got a National Marine Park, we've also got to start thinking about our blue and our green spaces. So my plea is that in future years, when we have to make some really difficult decisions, can we please make sure that we have cross-party support in supporting carrying out the policy?
Thank you very much, Councillor Dan. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor. Well, just picking up on Councillor Dan's point, yeah, Councillor Dan did introduce a changed regime for grass cutting in the city. But I think the lesson learned is the very point that Councillor Dan makes, that, yeah, we need cross-party working, but actually I would advocate that we need bottom-up approach. We need the community to be at the forefront of driving change. And I think the greatest issue for politicians is when you impose changes on the public without actually educating the public as to why you need to bring about change. Now, this is a huge agenda, and I congratulate the Cabinet member for providing opposition members with a briefing, you know, before he presents it to the chamber, to Cabinet and to this chamber. So thank you, Councillor Brydesdale, for involving opposition councillors in that process. But I would always emphasise to all politicians that the public need to be involved from the beginning. So if there's change to be brought about through this policy, indeed there will be change, that rather imposing it and that councillors are on the back foot, that the public do need to be made aware of the reasons for the change, the proposed change, consulted on the change, listened to, and then the change be brought in, and hopefully would get buy-in and the public would obviously take that on board. But certainly I have absolutely no issues at all with the proposed policies that are before council today, and I wish the agenda well, and I hope very much from a Plimpton St Mary perspective, and indeed I'm sure for other independent members, we will work in our own local communities to drive this policy forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Any other members wish to speak before Councillor Stoneman? Opportunity to speak now. Okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I rise to second the Net Zero Action Plan. I had the pleasure last year of introducing the first iteration of the plan, and I'm really pleased to be stood here today supporting the second Net Zero Action Plan, building on the work that we did cross-party last year, and I'm glad that this has continued. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Brydesdale for the changes that have been implemented after the scrutiny meeting that we had. I'm really pleased to see those in there. And also the conversations that we've had around community. Councillor Nicholson alluded to the fact of us leading in our communities, taking part and taking responsibility for net zero plans in our wards. And I think it's really important to focus on that community aspect, which Councillor Pemberthy also focused on, that this plan focuses on community in a greater level of depth, which is really important to get as many people involved as possible in our move to net zero by 2030. The target is, we've moved to the acceleration phase, or we did last year anyway, because we've got a rapidly approaching target. The last year went really, really quickly. I'm sure it's going to feel quicker and quicker and quicker the closer and closer we get. But with the strategic plans that we now have in place, being able to deliver a long-term approach rather than doing it year by year, gives us a little bit of solace, the fact that we've got a plan in place, we know where we need to act and how we need to act and when by. And I'm really, really pleased to see that this review has taken some of the points from last year and brought them forward and developing them into something that makes them a bit stronger and a bit more robust, especially in terms of funding difficulties and things like that. I am really pleased to be able to second this today and to support it. One thing I will say, and I'm a little bit disappointed about, there hasn't been much talk about Chelsea Meadow in the chamber today. One of the biggest opportunities we've got as an authority to really drive some renewable energy scheme. And I'm really looking forward to watching that from outside the chamber, after I stand down. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But I want to thank Councillor Brydesdale and the team for the work that they've done on this, and I'm really pleased to be able to second this today. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoneman. Councillor Brydesdale, would you now like to sum up?
Thanks for all those contributions. It's really great on a topic as important as this for so many of us to be on the same page. Just wanted to return briefly to some of the points being raised. Councillor Harrison, really appreciated your email. Also going to Councillor Stevens around Beryl. Because of the timing of it, it wasn't something that could be incorporated in this plan. And obviously Beryl's a private company, so you know, there does need to be conversations with them about it. But I know Neve Fay, who works with Beryl, is considering it, and I'm sure she'll bring it to the relevant cabinet member if it's deemed to be viable. Councillor Nicholson, I would refer you to pages 27 to 30 of the NZAP. This is chock full of initiatives to do with community engagement, which I think Councillor Penrose and Councillor Penberthy have already kind of mentioned. And then I just want to touch on Councillor McKay's point around finance. You know, I think it's fair to say that this is a huge economic challenge, but it's also an economic opportunity as well. And there is always going to be more that we can do to transition to a low-carbon city, and we're certainly not complacent about that. The resources that are available to us during these incredibly tough financial times aren't infinite. We all know that. But thankfully, I'm always blown away by the creativity and the commitment of City Council staff who keep moving investments forward against the odds. Notwithstanding the wider financial picture, in the budget, I was pleased that Councillor Lowry agreed to restore the Climate Emergency Investment Fund ratchet to enable millions more of investment in capital projects on top of our existing net zero programmes. Lord Mayor, this document represents a huge amount of work from many people, so I hope you'll permit me to offer a few thanks. First of all, I wanted to thank Councillor Stoneman for seconding this item today on a cross-party basis. I believe this is your final council meeting, as you've alluded to, and I wanted to acknowledge the work you did on this portfolio in the previous administration, and I wish you all the best for whatever it is that you have lined up after your career in local politics. I'd also like to say thank you to the Growth Scrutiny Committee, who unanimously endorsed the Net Zero Action Plan at their February meeting, and also to local community groups, once again, Councillor Nicholson, who have already been involved in influencing the development of this plan, most notably Climate Action Plymouth, who have given me very, very thorough feedback, and I look forward to continuing that engagement with them. I also want to thank the whole Cabinet, who very patiently sat down with me and their service directors, often over multiple meetings, to ensure that we are taking concerted action across the Council. Climate change isn't something that sits with me as the climate change portfolio. As an administration, we've made sure this is the business of every single Cabinet member and every single senior officer. Rest assured, I'll be following up on the actions you've all agreed during the coming year. I look forward to that. And I wanted to say thanks to the wider officers who have all rallied behind this call for every department to innovate on this agenda on top of what we know are already pressing priorities. I wanted to particularly mention Paul, Jonathan and Emmanuel for bringing this mammoth policy document together. I wanted to move on to a couple of requests. To all the councillors sitting in this chamber, as well as supporting the NZAP today with your vote, please continue to share decarbonisation ideas with us, as Councillor Harrison has already mentioned. I've pushed for the creation of a cross-party sustainability panel to help foster a more collaborative spirit going ahead. But Councillor Penrose has already shown today what can already be achieved informally. Soon after being elected, she leapt at the chance to do carbon literacy training. And she's used that as a platform to develop an NZAP commitment, which is here in this document and will shape how we do community engagement on this issue. So thanks again, Angela, for your contributions. And finally, a plea to all residents and organisations across Plymouth. Net zero is impossible without you. We will do everything we can to support you through transitioning sectors and boosting the co-benefits for local people. There will be loads of events and initiatives to get involved with. Please check out the city mission outlined on the Climate Connections website, and together we will be able to produce more city climate action plans that are significantly more inclusive and, even more important, more impactful than we could accomplish on our own. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Briers-Delve. All right, councillors, we now move to the vote. Please use your voting buttons on your unit. Green is for in favour, red is against, and amber is for abstain. Right, members, there we go. Those four have it. Thank you. We now move on to item number 10, Lord Mayoralty 23-24. Leader, would you like to introduce this report?
Yes, indeed, Lord Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to introduce this report to propose the Lord Mayor for 24-25 on the recommendation from the august Lord Mayor's Selection Committee. We met on the 8th of February and unanimously agreed to recommend Councillor Tina Toohey for the office of Lord Mayor in 24-25. That gives me enormous pleasure. It is in fact Tina's fault that I'm here at all. Because when Arthur Floyd, for it was he, had to give up being a councillor in 1988, there was a need for a by-election in Ham Ward, and I was very grateful that Tina and her husband Ray proposed me for the shortlist for the by-election, which I got through and won the subsequent election, defeating David Owen and his Land Rover and his party. But most importantly, it gave me the chance to work with Tina Toohey, a long-term resident of Ham Ward, of North Prospect, and now lately Weston Mill. And everybody knows Tina in Ham Ward. Everybody knows Tina. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's been touched by kindness. Everybody's been touched by care. She's an assiduous caseworker, assiduous dog walker, assiduous environmentalist, assiduous archaeologist. I mean, some of you may not know, but Tina actually has got a treasury of amazing stories. And I'm hoping in the course of her Lord Mayoralty that she'll get to share some of those with you, because they are extraordinary stories from an extraordinary life. An extraordinary life of service to our ward, to community in North Prospect in particular, and of course to the city in general. She's a PhD. Did anybody? I guess you all knew that, did you? Did you know, though, that the PhD was for the study of Iron Age weaving combs? And which is particularly interesting, I think. And if you have a few hours spare, I'm sure you could learn more than you ever needed to know about weaving combs from the Iron Age. But she has many stories, and she is one of the most incredibly modest people that you will ever meet. She doesn't boast about her own list of accompaniments. I wish she would a little bit more, because people deserve to know just how hard she works and what she has achieved. Achieved for the arts in Swilly, achieved for archaeology in general, achieved for Ham Woods. There are loads of stories. So I am absolutely made up to be able to propose my friend and colleague, Tina Toohey, for Lord Mayor for 24-25, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Councillor Lugger, would you like to have your words?
it is an honour to rise to second the proposition, and in fact, it is a great personal pleasure to see an Exeter graduate being Plymouth's first citizen. Now, we have heard that Councillor Dewey has so many stories to tell, and I do love the one about the replica house in North Prospect built to the design of the 1930s. We've all seen the television programme, The House Through the Ages. Well, I do believe that Councillor Dewey designed the interior virtually spot on to that spec. Well, Councillor Dewey is well travelled, and certainly you were born in Berlin and studied in the Netherlands, but her heart, of course, is in Plymouth. I remember her saying to me that the day she stepped off the train back in 1970, she fell in love with Plymouth, and that dedication is here today, 40 years on. Well, I can also say that living and working in North Prospect, you are well respected by all the residents, and leaving politics aside, as Councillor Evans mentioned, you are warm and kind. It is important for Plymouth's first citizen to be passionate about the city, dedicated to the city, but to be warm and kind. And I therefore commend Councillor Dewey to the Chamber. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lugger. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, members of the Council. Well, I wholly endorse the contribution from the Leader of the Council and the Leader of the Opposition, and I would just like to add my couple of sentences of support for Councillor Toohey to be the Lord Mayor. Having had the privilege of serving for a number of years with Councillor Toohey on the Planning Committee, one very important aspect of being the Lord Mayor, as you all know yourself, Lord Mayor, is actually chairing these council meetings and how you get on with members of the council generally. And I know that Councillor Toohey has been a steadfast Vice Chair of the Planning Committee for many, many years. One of the greatest attributes, Lord Mayor, and I wish her every success in her year, subject to us voting in a minute, and I'm sure she'll have a wonderful year, is keeping Councillor Bill Stevens under control as Chair of the Committee. So we're in store for an excellent Chair of the Lord Mayor, Chair of the Council in the next municipal year. And through you, Lord Mayor, wish Councillor Toohey the very best, and I can look forward to supporting her as much as I possibly can. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson, for a fantastic accolade. Councillor Toohey, on behalf of the Council, may I congratulate you on your selection as the nominee for the Lord Mayor 24-25. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I would. I'm a bit overwhelmed by everything that's been, nice things that have been said about me, but if you would bear with me a minute, I would like to say why I feel so honoured and so pleased to take this on. Yes, quite right. I was born in Berlin. My dad was a Daily Mail correspondent, and it was his first big job following the rise of Hitler. My mother was German, working in a hospital. Believe it or not, I was on the last train out of Berlin when the clothes I stood up in clutching a teddy bear and brought over to Britain. Thereafter, Dad went in the Navy, my mother went to work in a hospital, and I was put in a boarding school in Salcombe to keep me safe, and because my father's family came from Devon. And it worked. Mind you, the only thing that I really missed, and that I had missed all my life, was the fact that I never had a home. I lived in a boarding school, and in the holidays I went to other people's homes, anybody who had the room to keep me until the next term. That went on till the end of the war and further on. Thereafter, my parents divorced, so I never got a home. I went to live with my mother in London, and I'm not saying that I had a horrible life, I didn't. It was all rather rumbustious and chaos. I was a fine arts student, a bit of a singer. I mean, a ramshackle life, and it was good. But it didn't have any roots. And when I met Ray and we had a son, I said, really, we should be finding somewhere to bring our children up. And I said, guess what? I know somebody in Plymouth in Clifton Street. And we came down. And I have never forgotten the day we arrived. We walked up, I had my son on my shoulders. That slump up from the station, there is a rise that you get up at the top and you can look right across Plymouth to the sea. And honestly, I felt that Plymouth hugged me and I knew I'd come home. And I had. We spent a few years near Clifton Street, and then my husband got a job in the Parks Department, and I went to see him there, and I took one look at North Prospect and fell in love all over again. Tudor and I have never agreed about this. He didn't like the old red houses and all the beautiful trees, but I loved them. and the housing department said, you don't want to live in North Prospect. And I said, I certainly do. And I got a house very quickly without any trouble. And it was very nice. I was there for 35 years. And when it got pulled down in regeneration, PCH gave me another one, 5 minutes walk from where I lived before. And I lived lots of people have said about what I was doing there. And I don't know, I think I'll leave it at that. I got on well, and yes, I did go to Exeter, and I have to say that the antler weaving combs, there is on the walls of a house in Plymouth a large painting of a stag, and I have to say it's got red deer and elk antlers on it, which is not very likely to happen. However, Plymouth has been really good to me, good to my family, and I feel honoured and happy to have been chosen to become a Lord Mayor, and I hope I do it well, and I hope all the nice things you've said about me will last. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tui. Excellent. Right, I look forward to seeing you voted in at the AGM. We've got a little bit of a process to do here first. So we need to vote on the City Council's approval of the recommendation for the Lord Mayor Selection Committee to appoint you. So, councillors, we're looking to acknowledge here the recommendation. So it's those for, press green, those who wish to abstain, press amber, and those strangely who would wish to be against, red. Thank you. Right, councillors, we have an issue here which we'll fix in the shortness of time, but I think we'll all agree here that that was unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 8, where the City Council will consider motions from councillors. However, what I'd like to do first is take a break, go and have a cup of tea, and please to go out there and meet the representatives from Jeremiah's Journey and Trevi. And can I suggest that we reconvene at 4 o'clock? Yeah, if that's what you want. Sounds good to me. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, councillors. All right, we now move on to item number 8, where the council will consider motions from councillors in accordance with Part B, paragraph 14 of the Constitution. First motion is 8A and concerns parental leave for councillors. Councillor Dan, would you like to propose your motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is about making us a modern, fit-for-purpose council for the future. In October 2018, the LGA Labour Women's Task Force launched a parental leave policy for councillors. This was only possible following years of work and campaigning by women across local government. Since then, councils controlled by Labour, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats have passed a parental leave policy giving certainty to councillors who want to become parents whilst holding elected office, and sending a message to those thinking of becoming a councillor who may also want to start a family that this is a role that they can do as a councillor and be a parent. Many councillors have already used the parental leave policy that their council had passed and adopted. Case study examples including newly elected backbenchers taking maternity leave, a cabinet member taking adoption leave, a committee chair taking maternity leave, and a leader taking maternity leave as well. It shows that having a policy works, and it is one of the many important tools available to encourage new candidates and to be able to support existing councillors. And it may encourage, and I hope look around and I'm not being ageist when I say this, as I now have a pension, but it may encourage younger people and those with different life experiences to consider becoming a councillor. Having a parental leave policy in place is an important step towards making the role of a councillor more accessible. It will encourage a more diverse range of candidates to stand for election and, if elected, to progress into leadership. The LGA parental policy has already been used extensively, and what we need to do now is develop a policy for Plymouth City Council that will ensure that people who become parents, including adoption, will know that they can be supported within that role. It actually struck a couple of us today because we had a candidate in the chamber who had a small person with them, that actually, even as this building is actually not very family friendly, that when you come to have childcare, somewhere to go and change them, clean children, and it makes me think that part of this is we probably need to look a little bit more closely across all our council buildings just to see how family friendly we are. And I'm going to take that up as part of the customer experience of the future. So what I'm asking today is very, very clear, that we agree to adopt a parental policy, but I want it to be developed by a cross-party working group. We've got an LGA model policy we can use as a starting point. We can then ensure that the policy that we choose to adopt fits in with our policies and standards for the council, and will give us a framework for all political parties across the chamber to be able to support councillors who become parents either through birth or adoption. I move. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dan. Councillor Stevens with a V. I understand you are seconding the report. Would you like to speak now?
Very happy to second, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to reserve my right to speak, if I may, please.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Councillor Carlyle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think this motion is really interesting, and I think it's really good as well. I think when I was a mum of 2 young children, I had to work full-time as well, husband in the military. There's no way I would have ever even been able to take on something like this. And I really, really respect the fact there's going to be a cross-party review. And what I would think would be quite good, because you're talking about parental leave for counsellors, so it's not someone who's like being employed in a business per se, it's a different type of role. It would be quite good to look at opening that parental policy to include people who have got young children, because if you've got young children and you're working part-time and you'd like to be a voice in your community, you're combating school holidays, school time off, plus the roles here. And I'm wondering if we can sort of look at something like that that would incorporate all parents, so we do get a broader range of counsellors. And also, I think it would be quite nice if we could look at maybe doing more evening meetings, because I know a lot of councils do that. And actually, by having evening meetings, people might be able to balance childcare as well as being part of the council and having their voice here. But I'd be happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carlisle. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Similar vein to Councillor Carlisle, I think in principle this is a great idea. I suppose I just want to say, in terms of the working group that we might have, well, I've got two questions. The first one is, does the Constitution not allow this to happen in an informal way anyway? And I'm sure that's a genuine question. I'd like to just kind of see where your thinking is on that, because obviously we've got the 6-month rule, which means you've got a fairly flexible opportunity to take quite a big break if necessary. But the other thing I just wanted to add in is, I think if we're making this about enabling more and more people to serve as local councillors, which I think we would all agree is what we'd like to see, I don't think it's just about people who are having a baby. I think it's about people who have caring responsibilities, who would need compassionate leave, bereavement leave, are working full time and struggle, as Councillor Carlisle said, with daytime meetings. I'm really lucky. The job that is not my political job gives me local government leave, which enables me to take this afternoon off basically and not have to actually eat into my holiday, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So I just think we've got a bit of a missed opportunity if we don't use this as an option to look more broadly at what we could do as a council to enable more people. And I agree with what you've said already, Councillor Dan, in terms of baby changing facilities, all of those sorts of things that make this place more friendly. That makes a huge amount of sense. But I just think let's use this as an opportunity, if we can, to look more broadly at what we could do to encourage people of all shapes and sizes who want to be councillors to be able to do that. I'm also just thinking of self-employed people as well. You know, I've got family members who are tradespeople, essentially. You can't suddenly knock off a kitchen fitting job to come and do full council necessarily, but those people might make excellent local councillors. So again, if we could do evening meetings, if we can have flexibility. One thought I will end on, I don't think this needs to be that every council meeting, for example, goes to the evening, but wouldn't it be great to have an option? This committee will be in the evening, this one will be in the daytime, and you get to pick which one you do based on your own responsibilities. I don't think that would be very difficult to implement. And then those of us who do work during the day can say, well, actually, I'll be on planning committee because the new time is 6 p.m. And those of us who have time during the day could be on health and social care, for want of a better example. So I just think there are some really creative things. I'm sure that will be covered in this working group, but let's use this as a bigger opportunity to make this council as accessible as possible for as many people in this city, given the wide range of experience we know is out there that would really contribute well to the working of our council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Stoneman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and this is going to be my final speech, so you can all rejoice in the fact that you're not going to have to hear from me much more in the future. I will say that I'm going to be supporting this motion today, but one thing I would like to see in it, although I won't be a councillor after May, one thing I think could be quite useful in the future would be to include some bereavement leave for parents whose children don't necessarily survive the birth and things like that, and miscarriage leave and that sort of thing. I think that would be something that would make this policy more rounded, and I think it's something that should be considered. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoneman. Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I also want to recognise contributions from the side of the Chamber, some excellent additions to this policy that I think would be really welcome and that I support. Only 36% of councillors are women, and perhaps more staggeringly than that, only 16% are aged under 45. So thinking about this motion, I did ask myself, why aren't there more young people, particularly more young women, in politics? And I think one of the issues I see is addressed in this motion as part of the problem. The question of whether to start a family or not is so deeply personal, but in the midst of a deepening cost of living crisis, a virtually inaccessible housing market, stagnant wages, the looming threat of climate catastrophe, and the rising cost of childcare is an option that feels increasingly inaccessible to many. Whether or not you'll be supported at work before and following a birth or adoption shouldn't play into the equation, but for many young, particularly female councillors, it sadly does. With no proper support in place, we risk losing brilliant, experienced councillors when they start or choose to extend their family. And we're missing out on so many more who are put off running in the first place through lack of a defined policy in this area. So I support this motion, and I really hope we get this policy right. As I said, this is one part of the problem facing women's participation in politics, and I challenge members to think about what we can do more on an individual and party level. Politics is undoubtedly a place for women. I look around this chamber and I see so many incredible female politicians. According to research conducted by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, when women are involved in politics, it creates more equal and compassionate societies. Our perspective is different. Where some might see just a broken streetlight, I see an internal debate between choosing a safer, perhaps longer walk home, or forging ahead, gripping your keys tighter, pace quickening, hearts beating in your ears. Our perspective is vital. I want to see this body be representative of the people we represent, but that won't happen unless we take the proper steps at personal, party, and authority level to ensure it. And it certainly won't happen if people, especially women, are worried about how having a children would impact their ability to serve as a councillor. I sincerely thank Councillor Dan for bringing this policy forward, and I really look forward to the work that comes out of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Macleay. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't a councillor when I gave birth just over 5 years ago, but I was doing frontline politics in Plymouth, and I thought I'd just share a few brief reflections of what that experience is like to inform the debate today. I was thinking a lot about this, and I really commend Sue, who's been such a great champion of women in politics and in our city. And I was thinking that a generation of women, we're supposedly millennials now, are raised to think that we can have it all. But too often, this can mean in practice that you must do it all, you must be it all, you must give it all. And I think what's really important about this motion is that it is giving particularly women the permission, the self-permission to take that precious early moment with their children for the bonding, and that they don't have to be constantly on or constantly thinking about the pressures and burdens that frontline politics can bring. I think back on some reflections. I remember my daughter was in hospital unwell, and I was a parliamentary candidate, and I recently opened a letter saying that I had the stench of evil. And you're sort of, as a politician in the city, you're balancing these kind of abuse that you can get online and in paper with the realities of dealing with a young child. This motion and the option it gives to give that self-permission to take a step back is really, really important for long-term, I think, mental health for a lot of people a lot of new mothers and indeed fathers going into politics. It's also a really, really positive experience. I think back when my daughter, she's now 5, but when she was a child, going to community groups, to mother-parent group, mother-baby groups across the city, you get an insight into the hopes and dreams of new mothers across the city, of how they, what they're worried about, what they want to achieve for their families in Plymouth, and you get this fast track of insight that is really, really very, very special. Too many mums, I think, in politics that I know across the country talk of their guilt, the kind of crushing universal guilt of not being able to do enough, to be everywhere, to cover what we need to do. This motion is so important for, like I say, giving that self-permission and that space for new parents to celebrate that special moment and to not feel those burdens early on. So that's why I'll be voting for this motion, and I thank Sue and I thank this chamber, particularly the cross-party contributions. It's really important that we give people the space to be rounded people in our politics and in our personal lives. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holloway. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on the motion? Councillor Stevens.
Excuse me. Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor. As far as I know, I am the most recent sitting city councillor to have become a parent. And it's with those experiences and reflections that I'm addressing this. When my daughter Lauren was born, and Lauren, if you're watching, why on earth aren't you still in school? And yes, Daddy is with all those silly people that he normally spends so much time with. it really does alter your life and perspective on everything. And it does, as we've heard so powerfully, throw up many, many challenges in the role that we all have. The maternity leave that my wife was granted was really, really good from her employer. The paternity leave I received from my employer was really, really good as well. But in terms of being a city councillor, 4 days after my daughter was born, I was in this chamber for a city council meeting. And that sums it up, Lord Mayor, in terms of how we treat new parents who just happen to be in elected roles serving their community and serving the city. I think we need to do better than that, and I think we can do better than that. I think we need to have a chamber that looks like Plymouth, that looks like the city that we represent. And I do like Councillor Lugger enormously, let me say that at this stage. But I think we need to attract councillors whose points of cultural reference are a bit more up to date than Max Bygraves, with the very, very best will in the world, Lord Mayor. That might be one happy byproduct of the work we're about to engage on. Now, we've deliberately not been prescriptive because the best ideas will come from the people in this chamber, no matter what political party they represent. And I'm really pleased that in the space of a very few, and I mean that positively, very few short contributions, we've seen so much energy, common sense, and positive ideas already. And I look forward to all those colleagues who've spoken and more feeding into the process. I'm very hopeful that we can get a common sense policy that's legally compliant but does what we all want to do, which is to break down some of the more structural and cultural barriers that stop so many people coming into politics. And I'm looking forward to getting on with that work.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Dan.
So just to come back on a couple of the points, the reason I stressed parental leave, it will undoubtedly affect more females than anybody else. But with the different makeup of families and different people, how they choose to have children and adopt, it is really important to respect the diversity of what a family can look like. So that was why it was put down as parental leave. When you look at the LGA policy, there is obviously a lot more in there about maternity leave, but I just wanted it to be a really inclusive policy. And women do have a different viewpoint when they are in this chamber as well, and that's partly because a lot of the research that has been shown is that women access more local authority services generally than men, partly because of the roles that they take within the family. The knock-on effect it's had where councils have adopted the policy is that political groups have become a lot more aware of what their responsibility is in caring for councillors when they have their own issues. So things like caring responsibilities, bereavement. Groups have become a lot more compassionate and understanding and supportive because they've had a policy which actually supports people within their role. Because we're not employees, when we draw up the policy that they've had in other councils has been a voluntary policy that has been adopted because we're not employed. But I think the point that Councillor Stevens made there, although we still have the 6-month rule, even if a policy is adopted, for that 6 months, you won't have to go through what Councillor Holloway was saying was the guilt. Oh, I should be at a planning meeting, I should be at a scrutiny meeting, I should be at this meeting, I should be at that meeting, because actually you've been given the permission to have 6 months of not being active in your role as a councillor. And it also allows political groups then to cover whilst you're away. So if you hold a position, you can delegate that authority. I take on board all the things you said about timings of meetings, that is not in this policy. It could be, it doesn't prohibit us, but I think that is a much wider conversation, because we're not just talking about councillors, we also have to talk about the staff and the buildings and everything else. What I didn't want to do was make this policy so wide we'd spend 3 years talking about it. Actually, after the next local elections, we can set up a working policy, we can start working on it straight away, because it's narrower, but that doesn't prohibit us from having a conversation which runs alongside that about how we manage council meetings and the timings. But I just think it's important not to get the two confused, otherwise it might be restrictive. So can I just say thank you very much. Look forward to being hopefully on the working group for this, because being a woman who's been in politics for a number of years, I will have to say this, that if you have that caring responsibility at home, regardless of what your role is in the family, being a councillor, it takes a lot out of you. And actually, if we can make it so that just for a short period of your time, you can keep that role of a councillor but not have the guilt of not doing something, then that can only be for the good of everybody. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dan. Right, we'll move to the vote. Those in support, please press green. Those against, please press red. And those who wish to abstain, please press amber. All right, that motion's passed with 46-4. Right, we'll move over now to motion 8B. And this is a motion on notice reference the Keyham unexploded bomb and a motion of thanks. Councillor Stevens, would you like to propose the motion?
I do indeed, Lord Mayor, thank you. Last month, the areas of Keyham and Ford were at the centre, as we all know, of an unbelievably huge crisis. The discovery of an unexploded Second World War bomb made local people feel a mixture of fear, worry and uncertainty. They showed a range of emotions and actions that were all totally understandable. But what unfolded was a clear demonstration of Keyham, Ford, the City Council, the emergency services, partner agencies, volunteers, and Plymouth as a whole at their very, very best. Right from the start, the commitment and professionalism of the police and the army was on display, working around the clock to let people know as best they could what was happening and to keep the area as safe as possible. With no notice, City Council staff worked with the Beacon, the Life Centre and others, setting up centres of support and reassurance for people who didn't know what would happen from 1 hour to the next. The huge number of volunteers from the Red Cross, the Search and Rescue and so many more in between were amazing and humbling to see. On top of that, there were countless people from across Plymouth who just wanted to help. People who didn't have to step forward, but who chose to step forward. On behalf of our constituents, my sincere thanks to Tracy Lee, our Chief Executive, and all the City Council staff who did so much around the clock. Seeing for myself the professionalism and expertise of the emergency hub at Ballard House was a wonder to behold and made me extremely proud to be part of this organisation. Thanks also to Chief Superintendent Longman and all his officers and staff for their patience and good humour. Particular thanks to Councillor Sally Hayden for the leadership she showed in her role during the week, showing Plymouth and the rest of the country there was a firm hand on the tiller. Above all, though, our gratitude goes to our constituents for their fortitude, and I'm pleased to say we'll be hearing from one of them in just a few moments' time. And within 4 days, the panic was over. The courage, skills, and forward thinking of the army ensured damage was kept to an absolute minimum. The recovery is continuing, and we need to pay tribute to our Member of Parliament, Luke Pollard, and his team for their unswerving commitment to our neighbourhood. Lord Mayor, those 4 days in February showed the very best of public services and a formidable community spirit. They were a reminder of what Plymouth as a whole suffered at the hands of Nazism 80 years ago, and that our history in this city is very, very real. So many people stepped up, and our heartfelt thanks go to them all. I'm really pleased to be able to move this motion today, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. I'm sure the Royal Navy was in there somewhere, wasn't it? Right, moving forward, Councillor Sproston, you're seconding the reports. Would you like to reserve your right? Or?
Yep, my Lord Mayor, I'll be seconding this motion and I would request to reserve my right to speak.
Ideal. Right, would anybody else like to speak on this? We have, to start off with, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, members of the council. Well, I'm delighted to fully support Councillor Stevens in the motion before the council in his name and everything he's said in moving the motion. Indeed, no doubt, Councillor Sporres, and I'll agree with your points, no doubt, in due course. I think it is important at this opportunity, the first opportunity since the incident occurred, for the council to record its appreciation in the manner in which the proposer and seconder have done today, because you're absolutely right, through you, Lord Mayor, Councillor Stevens, it shows the best of public service, it shows the best of local government, it shows the best of the police service, and it's our organisations locally on the ground that matter in situations like this. Clearly the government are important at a national level, but you can't underestimate the importance of local government bringing together all those partners that we rely on at times of need. And we never know when we're going to need the resources at local disposal until this sort of situation occurs. So I would like to add my congratulations and thanks to everybody concerned. The only addition I would have put in writing is the very important role that Councillor Hayden played in her department and actually being the focal point, certainly in the local media. You gave some excellent interviews, Councillor Hayden, and I would have probably added you in writing, but I'm not going to move an amendment. I'll put it on record that I think you did a very good ambassadorial role for the City Council. So through you, Lord Mayor, thank you, Sally, for all that you did, and obviously the officers and everybody else in delivering a successful outcome. And I hope very much that we don't see too many more of these incidents in the coming years. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Well emphasised, Councillor Nicholson. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to say a huge thank you to the people of Keyham, because as soon as I heard that there was a bomb down in Keyham, I knew right away the resilience of the Keyham people would be strong. Having been to Keyham some years ago when another tragedy struck the residents there, as Lord Mayor and my then Deputy Lord Mayor, we spent a lot of time in Keyham and we could see the resilience and the coming together, and that certainly happened on this occasion, Lord Mayor. So I too express my sincere thanks to everybody involved in this particular incident, and to our armed forces and to the police for making sure that this was a successful outcome, because things could have been much worse had this bomb exploded. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beer. Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Try not to blush. It was just part of the day job, shall we say, but thank you for all your kind thoughts. Thank you for bringing the motion on notice, Councillor Stevens. I think it's really important being the first meeting, as Councillor Nicholson has said. But I think it's really worth mentioning some statistics. So this was the largest UK peacetime evacuation since World War II that we've seen here in Plymouth. I'm going to try not to bore you all too much, but I think it's really important to show you how well Plymouth City Council and their partners all came together for some of their first. So it was the first first national emergency alert system. We were the first in the UK to have this. And I always remember Jane Slaven from Comms. I was being interviewed for, I think it was Spotlight or someone. I sound so famous, I had so many people. But they were only telling me what they wanted me to say, because they were, like most people, are very frightened of what I'm going to say next. So she only gave me a few things. And after being in Ballard one on the Friday and speaking to Debbie, she was telling me we were the first. And I said to Jane, we're the first, you know. We were and she goes, I don't think we were. So I said it, and I could see her face dropping. So I was quite pleased to know that I had actually got something right for once. But it was the first time the Life Centre was used as a rescue centre, rest centre, sorry. In partnership with the National Highways, it was the largest single traffic management deployment in the city since World War II. This took a whole amount of people, as we said. You know, the libraries donated 12 boxes of books to the Life Centre. I remember being in the Beacon on the Wednesday, and these families just did not know what to do. They were frightened. One particular lady, you know, she only went to walk her dog at Central Park that day, and then was told, I can't go home. You know, so we were having a bit of a giggle in the fact that she was going to stay at the Duke of Cornwall. I said, make sure you get a nice fluffy dressing gown, love, and make sure you get yourself a couple of bickies to watch Emmerdale tonight. And just trying to liven up. You know, people were so brave. And you know, the people of Keyham have put up with an awful lot. But if we didn't have the staff that we have here today, we would never have been able to achieve that. You know, just to give you an idea, people evacuated was 10,300. The properties were 4,200. You know, we accommodated people, 180 people. Imagine overnight finding accommodation just like that. They done it. And, you know, even if, like, we had some young people that had just come from school and they were being told that they couldn't go home, their priority was their phone charger. They were absolutely devastated. I ain't got my phone charger. Never mind, a carrier bag comes out. What phone charger would you like? You know, I just stood back. It was absolutely amazing. So, you know, there was a lot of seriousness about it, believe me not. You know, I do remember on the Friday standing in the car park in Lidl's. Always go to the best places myself. And I was turning a funny colour, and one of the chaps from the army said, Sally, he says, are you okay? I went, no, I've just realised if this goes terribly blimmin' wrong, I'm pretty close. And he goes, don't worry, you won't know a thing. And so, you know, so we can all have a laugh and a giggle, but on a serious note, this motion is very serious. And, you know, I just want to put my personal thanks to Tracy Lee, all your staff, and you have been absolutely fantastic. And it took partners as well, you know, Plymouth Community Homes and umpteen, and I'm really not going to name them because I know I will forget somebody. But thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I certainly will support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to echo the thanks of everybody who's already spoken, to every single person who completely embodied the concept of going over and above to support residents of Keyham and Ford in my ward of Stoke during this incident. But I hope you'll indulge me because I'm fortunate enough to have the comms portfolio. I wanted to add my particular personal thanks to the comms team and the comms teams of our partners. They worked round the clock to provide regular, consistent and reassuring updates across a variety of platforms. And their work was key in keeping people safe, and it was vital in keeping people calm, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank them all publicly. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I echo, as Councillor Stevens, co-councillor for the ward, I echo everything that everyone has said today. But I think we must remember, as Councillor Beer touched on, Keyham community has had a tough time over the last few years. The resilience that they've shown has been absolutely amazing, and I think we all need to recognise that. I also want to pay tribute to a resident who is a councillor, Councillor Boston, who spent, both of us were evacuated on Friday, but we spent our mornings talking to residents in and around Morristown and businesses, helping the emergency service get the message out that for their safety, people needed to evacuate, and if they had particular issues, the council did a sterling job in helping the elderly and the disabled. I fully support this motion, but it would be remiss of me not to pay tribute to the residents themselves for their resilience and their commitment to one another. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak on the motion? Councillor Krasniak.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I am really, really impressed with the response that our council has given to people of Keyham during this difficult time. However, what really impressed me is that we as a city have been in the national media as a shining example how to do the job properly. Not long ago, our city has been also in the spotlight. Armada Way was a disaster, and it put our city as ruthless and not caring. Keyham was complete opposite, and I cannot thank enough to every single person that has been involved in making sure that people of Keyham have safe, secure home and roof over their heads. I would like also to thank the residents of my ward that I represent that made the contacts and offered their homes for the people of Keyham, that they can have safe and secure place where to stay during those difficult times. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other councillors who'd like to speak on the motion? Councillor Spuston.
My Lord Mayor, thank you. As much as I am very proud to be the Budseld councillor like yourself, I make no secret that I live in Keyham. I have lived in Keyham for 20 plus years, started businesses, helped start community groups, co-run the biggest community group in Keyham, Keyham Neighbourhood Watch, and that is the only Royal Endorsed Neighbourhood Watch in the Southwest, and one of 3 nationally. I am one very proud curtain twitcher. I've been embedded with the community of Keyham for many years through the highs and the lows. That's why I feel comfortable to speak personally on this matter. As I, along with many others, was unable to go home after finishing work, finding that the house behind mine had a World War II bomb in front of it. I went through the same anxiety of wondering about pets, insurance, memories collected over the years as everyone else. A close friend put myself and my girlfriend up in their home like so many people did, and this gave me the opportunity to position myself close to the Beacon Centre to assist the community there. Here I saw the many council workers, managers and staff working hours and hours on end. The large amounts of Keyham have been overwhelmed with the support and care given to them, to the point I've been stopped on the streets and praised by local residents for the work done by the council. And this isn't a face people come to naturally to hug. But there it was. And even when speaking to Camborne Council, praise was coming from officers there over the handling of this council in regards to this incident. So I'd like to pass my thanks as a resident, along with my neighbours, street, and further community, to say a big thank you to the council staff for their hard work and support. In a tough time, the council rose up and delivered. To this end, I want to thank the Cabinet for their strong leadership, the local councillors, Councillor Mark Coker, Bill Stevens, Jemima Lang, Sally Cresswell, and Councillor Bridesdale. And I know I'm going to be in trouble for this because she specifically told me not to mention her name. And as a new councillor, it's never great to upset the Cabinet members, but a special mention to Councillor Sally Hayden. And I have spoken about this story, and she's not a fan of it. But I remember her slumped on the floor giving radio interviews, and without being too rude, you looked quite tired. And when I asked if you were okay, you turned around and said, "Don't worry, I have a dentist appointment soon, so I can have a break." Well, I don't know too many people that consider the dentist as a break. But for me, that shows your modesty, your humbleness, your hard work, and what a team player you are, so thank you. On the flip side, I did find it disappointing that a certain MP took to posting negative comments about council officers on social media. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go off script. I'm not going to talk about this. I just feel it was something that let down the city. So I'm going to continue to talk about the positives as stated on this motion. I saw the whole of Plymouth coming together again. I saw Jonathan Cowie, the new chief exec from PCH, along with all of his new staff, and they were exceptional. Keam's own MP, Luke Pollard, all the Beacon staff. A big thank you to Tracy Lee, our chief exec, and Giles Perrett, and Emma Croder. When you're sat at the top of the tree, thanks can't be passed down. But I think everyone understands the work you all put in, and I thank you very much for that. All the emergency services, the police, the bomb squad, and without exception, the military personnel that drove the bomb away as part of the Royal Navy UOT team. I didn't say senior service, or... The words hero get bounced about very easily sometimes, but I believe these service personnel are something special. But most of all, I want to thank the Keam Ford community for once again showing their resilience and toughness. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference, and the community of Keam Ford has shown itself to be resilient, tough, and inspirational. I want to thank everyone that's been kind enough to show support, and I'm so glad that we all have the opportunity to publicly show our thanks to those that work so hard. And therefore, my Lord Mayor, I am pleased to second this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sproston. Councillor Stevens, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I accept your admonition. The senior service do deserve our thanks, but I think that just shows when you try to thank people and groups, it was such a wide-ranging effort, you will always inevitably accidentally leave some people out. But if you can take our thanks back to your previous comrades in that service, we'd all be grateful, I'm sure. I'd like to thank everybody who has made contributions today. Everything they've said is true, and I think it shows that although we do have our political differences that are expressed robustly and loudly on occasions, whatever you may say in guidance, Lord Mayor, when it matters, we can speak as one. And I think you've seen that today. Keam is known for its resilience, its fortitude, and its community spirit. I think going forward as well, Keam would like to be known as a place where very little happens. And hopefully that will indeed be the case, Lord Mayor. But above all, our thanks go to everybody who contributed in whatever way for those 4 days in February. And it just left me in total admiration of their efforts.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Right, we'll now move to the vote in support by pressing the green button, or red for those against, and amber to abstain. Thank you. Right, that looks 46. There we go. That's the fours have it. Thank you very much. Right, we now move to item number 9, question by councillors. Can I invite members to ask any questions of the leader, cabinet members or committee chairs? Please indicate who would like to speak by raising your hand and I will call you to speak. Please note that there are 45 minutes for the questions and answer sessions. I would ask that cabinet members, when responding, do not turn round and continue face forward, please, so that it's easy for you to speak into your microphone. Questions should be no more than 1 minute long, answers no more than 2 minutes. Members may ask one supplementary question, not a statement, which must be related to the original question they asked. The same time restrictions apply. Okay, so we start off with Councillor Tippett.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. And as much as I love talking about buses, my question isn't for Councillor Coker today, it's for Councillor Briers-Delve. Thank you so much for accepting my invite to come out with me, Councillor Angela Penrose and fellow Plymouth Labour colleagues in Mutley recently to have a look at the issues that residents are having with bins being left on the streets after collection. As you heard from lots of residents, it is a continuous issue all year round. And so have you had any chance to consider any ways to tackle this?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure it'll be the only question to me this evening, so I really appreciate you starting that off. I really appreciated the opportunity to come out to Mutley. It's an area I know well, but I spend a lot of time reading emails about the whole city and the issues faced, and it was great to talk firsthand to some of the residents you've been supporting. Based on the conversations that day, we've got agreement from Street Services and the Environmental Protection team to trial a pilot in Mutley relating to one of the streets that I spoke to residents that day, which will all be about encouraging ways to make sure that the residents are returning bins to their property. We know it's a particular issue in Mutley with the residential makeup there of HMOs right next to family properties. And I've also identified a particular site on a Mutley back lane, which I know has recurrent fly tipping issues, in the hope that that would try and address those concerns too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Briers-Delve. That's fantastic. Could we be updated when the CCTV camera is put in place?
Of course, I'll make sure ward councillors get updated on that. Thank you.
Councillor Tuffin.
I do beg your pardon. Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I was pleased to hear the announcement by Councillor Pemberthy this afternoon about the work of the DFG, which is Disability Facilities Grant. We are too often talking initials. And my question is, how are you going to ensure value for money and compliance with this work in the city? Thank you, my Lord.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry, just flipping through folders, different pages with DFG notes on them. In DFGs, we've begun using a dynamic purchasing system, which enables us to draw down from a wide range of different providers in order to get the best value we can for money, and that's part of INSIC, where we work with 30 other authorities. It makes sure that we get trained people, qualified people, and insured work offered following competitive bidding so that the householders can choose someone they can have total confidence on. It also manages the supply sort of troughs and peaks of demand so that we get best rates at any time. But we're looking forward now to seeing how we can use technology-enabled care to do more work, supporting more people at the right time in the right setting, and actually able to make the most of technology to not only do the adaptations, but make sure the adaptations stay right for people. So, for example, a light that comes on if motion is detected at night, which might well be someone falling out of bed or getting out of bed, that just begins to make life a little easier for them. So lots of little bits we're doing to tweak, but we are doing that all the time to try and make sure we give the very best service we can. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for supplementary. We understand what an important service this is, so I think it's important. Are you satisfied that the budget provided to the council will be adequate to fulfil the promise of this service, please, Councillor Pemberthy?
Thank you. This is an area where we rely on funding from outside the council in order to be able to do the work. We are working as fast as we can to clear work on the waiting lists. And at the moment we have a budget of all sources, around £3 million. That's not only the government, but Plymouth Community Homes and others. But the demand is growing faster than the budget is growing. And I'm sure the team would welcome any additional funding that government or the IHB might be prepared to give in order that we can further meet the needs of people in Plymouth. One of the reasons for that is that costs are rising, but so are complexities of cases. So we are getting more demand for some of the extensions that are required, for example, to houses in order that young people can stay in family homes. Now, we think that's really important, but they are disproportionately expensive, and we're having to use discretion a lot more than we used to in making the allowances. So if there is any spare money floating around, and I know that is very optimistic at this particular point in time, but additional government funding to support DFGs, I think would have very positive health and wellbeing outcomes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pemberthy. Councillor Rainsford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Health outcomes in St Peter and the Waterfront are some of the poorest in the city. And so the Diagnostic Centre on Colin Campbell Court is potentially really important and will certainly make a difference to health inequalities. It's good news that we've had a go-ahead, but could the Cabinet member please let me know whether or not we actually have a date for the work to actually start, because people in St Peter's need it desperately.
I'm always very dubious about giving out dates, Lord Mayor, because it often gets you into trouble. I think it's important to realise the work we've already done, though. So the reason we can go forward with the CDC in Colin Campbell Court is because we as a council purchased many of the properties down there and have done the enabling works to remove those properties to enable the CDC to commence. We are still awaiting planning permission, but that's expected this month, so hopefully March. But enabling works will commence in April, so next month. The project should start in earnest in July of this year and should complete in September of 2025. And I hope that answers the question, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lowry. We now move on to Councillor Watkin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Penberthy. Plymouth Stock Radford councillors have been endeavouring to get the footpath to Jennicliff reinstated for several years, and I was delighted to hear in the budget meeting that you'd found some funding to reinstate the footpath. Could you please let me know what sort of work will be carried out, please?
Thank you, Councillor. We have already repaired fencing along the footpath, the steps, and we're now attaching metal channels alongside in order to get the water spillage from the stairs routed down down the length of the stairs rather than down the face underneath them. That means that that work, which the order has just been raised, should become starting within the next few weeks. Once it's done, we have signage printed, which is due for installation anytime soon, to indicate that the steps are an uneven surface. So although safe, they will be accessible at the public's risk. So that means that they will be coming back into use, but we're asking people to take extreme care when using them. What we're hoping to do is stop some of the erosion on the cliff which, if they totally undermine the steps, will mean that they will no longer be there at all. So we found a cost-effective solution to bring them back, and I'd like to thank the team who've been working on that for the last few months since I asked them to resolve the problem that's been far too long outstanding.
Lord Mayor, can you confirm that this is going to be a long-term solution, or is this just a patch-up job?
If you'd like to stop the wind, the rain and the sea, it'll be a long-term solution. However, we're trying to make the access available for as long as we can. However, the cliffs are eroding, and at some point it will no longer be feasible for us to have a staircase. So we're just trying to keep it there for as long as we can, but we're not going to be able to guarantee stairs to Jenny Cliff on a long-term basis. What we're trying to do is maintain access for as long as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wanted to ask a question of Councillor Bingley as chair of the Growth and Infrastructure over in Scrutiny Panel, so it might be that in his absence the Vice Chair might need to pick this up. A number of council meetings ago, I raised the concern I had, and indeed I'm sure a number of councillors have, given the limited resources on highway maintenance and the quality of our repairs. And Councillor Bingley undertook to take it back to the scrutiny panel to ensure it hopefully was included in the work programme. I'm not sure who the Vice Chairman is, apologies, Lord Mayor. Could I be informed of where it sits in the work programme? And this surely would promote our ask of government to provide Plymouth with more resources if we had a bit more evidence from cross-party working on scrutiny calling for more money. So can I have an assurance it's in the work programme, even though we're not going to do it this municipal year, for the future? Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, so I heard it was where it sits in the work programme and is it in the work programme? So those are the two questions. Okay, so is there anybody who can pick up that question? Thank you, Councillor Tuffin.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm unable to answer it, but I will get an answer for you as quickly as possible and email it to you because I haven't got that particular knowledge with me at this moment.
Lord Mayor, thank you, Councillor Tuffin.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on to Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. A question for Councillor Coker. There is a lane in Peveril that has a trailer in it with lots of household and other dubious rubbish in it. It's been there since certainly October. It has a notice on it dated the middle of October saying that it needs to be removed by the middle of November. Well, various residents have been perplexed by this. They've been trying to find out what's happening. They do try themselves, but they've got nowhere with trying switchboard numbers or whatever until it was brought to my attention. So I raised it only last week. To be fair to Councillor Coke, he probably knows about it, but it is fairly recent. And I've had a reply saying there has been a significant delay in taking action with obstructions as our policies are currently being looked at by our legal department. And until we have instruction, we cannot remove any obstructions of the highway. What is going on? Why put a notice on it if you can't remove it? And it does rather make us all look a bit silly. So have you any answer, Councillor Coker?
Thank you. Wasn't the question that I thought you were going to ask, because normally I can read your questions via your emails, Councillor. But in all serious note, I'm not aware, and I'm being upfront, I'm not aware of any review of legal processes from our legal officers. That's something that I will find out after this meeting. As far as I'm aware, there is a policy in place. I've had 2 removed from my ward following the due process. So all I will do is commit tomorrow morning, Councillor Mahoney, to find out why your case is any different to mine.
Thank you, Councillor Coker. I think we all would be interested to know if there is a change of policy and there's a review going on, but as I say, it's been there. The notice has been on since middle of October. It's actually rather tatty now, and it is annoying the residents. So perhaps we could all be informed if there is a policy about trailers and obstructions in lanes. Thank you.
Yeah. I have no doubt that you will fulfil his request of informing us in the fullness of time. Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. Right. Moving on to Councillor Ricketts, please.
Councillor Coker, firstly, thank you for your help this year, and as always with helping my residents in Drake Ward. You have been particularly helpful, so thank you for that. There is an ongoing issue that myself and Councillor Holloway are dealing with, and I'm sure it's at the forefront for you as well, on the Central Park Avenue, where we've got this gaping sort of hole where the vegetation left when the utility company came in. Just really hoped that we could, it's been going on for so long, that we could sit down, get a meeting together with you and your team to really get this design scheme in place and get the budgetary alignment to get it sorted. I just hope if you had any timelines for that, Councillor Coker.
Thank you for the compliments, Councillor Ricketts. I do try and work with most members. That's why we're here. On the Central Park issue, yes, I am aware of it. It's been an ongoing issue. It's an issue that my department has picked up in highways, because the problem was not of highways making, and not, as you know, as a former cabinet member, from HMPE land. There are ongoing negotiations with Street Scene and Waste, because that's the department that the land belongs to, and with the utility company, let's put it that way, that caused the issues. I am more than happy for Councillor Holloway and yourself, Councillor Briarsdelve, to sit down and try and force this through, because it's been going on far too long.
Supplementary, Laura. Really appreciate that, and look forward to that being scheduled. On a more sort of urgent matter, it is painful to see just on the highway there with the wind and the rain, the railings and the cones, and how people have to run around or walk around into the road there. It's kind of it is a kind of urgent issue, as you can imagine, because it kind of changes on a daily basis towards the weather. Is there anything in place to sort of get that sorted while we're looking at the wider issue?
Yeah, what I will do, Councillor Ricketts, for you is first thing tomorrow morning, I will ask the highways inspectors and their boss to do another audit there to make sure that what's in position, which I have been told already meets the requirements, but because you've raised it, I will ask them to revisit the site and inform both Councillor Holloway and yourself of the results.
Moving on. Right. I'm not necessarily reliably informed, but I believe the next councillor to speak is Councillor Stevens. But I believe it does not, righto. It's now Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for Councillor Cresswell. It's regarding the Civic Centre Skills Hub. I welcome the news that the Civic Centre Skills Hub is coming to fruition. We all know that our blue and green skills are vital to our city. I do have some concerns, slightly off track, about the amount of money that is not being allocated, the 51 million for the project, and I do hope that council members will be updated after your review in October. But my main question is, who are the courses, the training aimed at? Is it our young people? And at what level are we going to be, what levels are we planning for us to go to? Are we looking at apprenticeships, as we said before? Are we looking at degree level, for example, through City College? What are we focusing on? And also, when
Can we finish, please?
When are we planning for it to be opened, please, Councillor Cresswell? Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Right. First of all, not all that money is allocated just, in fact, for skills. Some of it's actually for the building, and so it's not all about skills. What you ask is a really important question, and it's the very question that I and the skills team and I have had really important meetings with City College on that. So the intention is to offer skills from level 2 right up. So we're looking right up to degree apprenticeships, and also we're looking, and we're going to work on a lot of work in terms of our with the college to make sure that it is really truly inclusive, so you are actually aiming at those young people as well who are SEND disadvantaged, and that's exactly what I talked about in cabinet this morning. At the same time, we are also looking at making sure there's those higher levels of skills, those skills that we're going to need in all aspects of the green and blue economy. I mean, this is such an exciting period, and it's really important. But what's really important as well is that we make sure that everyone's included. It's really inclusive, and I think, as I said this morning, is that everyone gets a job, everyone gets skilled up to get an even better job. So it's really very much an inclusive project which is going to build the economy within the city, as well as building the economy and success for everyone, so everyone actually benefits. I think there might have been something else I missed there.
Yes, so the other part of it was what are the timelines for us for the hub to be up and running?
We're looking at 2026, so in the September probably 2026 is the plan. So basically we're looking now at young people who are in years 7, 8 and 9, that this is going to be opportunities for those young people, which is really exciting. And I think one of the things that you raise about that inclusivity, which I keep coming back to, is very, very important. And it's something that we have really picked up. And we're working very much as one with the college. This is a great opportunity of working as working very much together with our partners to do the best for everyone, and I think, quite honestly, to be a place of excellence and a real trailblazer that other parts of the country will follow.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Councillor Carlisle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for Councillor Bryce-Delve, who's a busy man today. I'm really pleased that myself and my fellow ward councillors are singing from the same hymn sheet with regards to bins being left out. And I really welcome the pilot scheme. I know I was recently contacted by council officers about setting up temporary CCTV in the back lanes as well, which I really, really welcome. But I was just wondering, has Plymouth ever implemented its Section 46A of the, was it the Environment, and make sure I get the right wording right, Environmental Protections Act? So it's where that we can issue out a fine for people who have left out bins and they are under obstruction. And I was wondering if we have done, and if not, is it something that we could consider doing so? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlisle, for the question. So the pilot that we'll be operating will be exploring various mechanisms that the council hitherto hasn't made the most of. There are some real issues with the legislation that you're referring to. So it's a very cumbersome piece of legislation, requires a huge amount of officer capacity, and so to do that at scale across the city wouldn't be viable with legislation as it currently stands. But that doesn't mean to say that we don't want to innovate in that area and really try and experiment with what the options that are currently available to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I was just wondering, though, when you're saying about the provisional, currently right now I know that we've had, say, for Seaton, letters go out to them to give them a warning about bringing their bins back in. Right now, currently, it's a bit of a toothless warning. So what this is, and as you probably know with Section 46A, it's a 3-part, so you do get your written warning, and then it's a penalty of a fine up to £80 at a later date. So I'm wondering if we've already managed to do the first part of that quite successfully, because that did work really, really well for Seaton. People did bring in their bins for the next sort of 3 months before it started building back up again. And that's what I'm wondering, if a fine would be something that would be a heavier deterrent, because we're already managing to implement the letter part of it. Thank you.
So further options are being considered as part of that pilot, and that will include opportunities to be a little bit more persuasive if there are repeat offenders. But it's fair to say we want to make sure we're doing this with the public, and education is going to have to be an important part of that.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Councillor McNamara.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is for Councillor Lang. I welcome the news that the Council was successful in its bid for the Youth Investment Fund. Can you detail how Efford Youth Centre will benefit from this extra investment? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as you said, we were successful in our bid for £2.3 million from the Youth Investment Fund. The money is going to enable what I'd call a one-of-a-kind opportunity to renovate 3 youth centres across Plymouth: Honock Knoll Youth and Community Centre, Frederick Street Centre, and of most interest to you, I imagine, Councillor McNamara, Efford Youth and Community Centre. These buildings will have a complete overhaul, giving them not only a new modern appearance, but a new internal layout and a top-to-bottom refresh of equipment and resources inside. The project is called the Fresh Project, which is formed from F&R from Frederick Street, E for Efford, and H for Honock Knoll with an S in there to make it fresh. So in addition to the funding, Plymouth City Council have also committed £600,000 to address some legacy repairs and maintenance at the sites, and this will include new roofs at both Efford and Honock Knoll Youth Centres. And because of their location and their flat roofs, both of those sites have also been successful in being approved at the first stage for £1 million of funding for environmentally sustainable solutions, including solar panels at each site. And in addition, Efford has also been awarded funding from the Football Foundation to modernise the outdoor sports area with new fencing, lighting and play surface, all intended to draw more people into using the location and increasing the access to fun and healthy activities. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unfortunately, my question is for Brian Delve. But with respect to our net zero plans for 2030 and looking at our carbon emission charts, it's really great to see that all but one sector is actually declining in carbon emissions, which is fantastic. But there's one bit there with the vehicle fleets, etc., having increased over the years by almost 10%, 9.4 I think was the figure. As we're already some time gone in 2024, when will figures for 2023, taking into account the new electric vehicles purchased, be available? Thank you.
Thank you. So the way in which the data we receive is staggered. And so that's true up and down the country and is just the way in which it is assessed. You raised an important point, which is that fleet decarbonisation is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a local authority. The scale of investment required is huge. I'm really excited that we've got more electric vehicles on order that will be coming soon, including one for the library service. As part of the new Net Zero Action Plan as well, there's additional work that we're putting in place in terms of looking at staff travel and opportunities to encourage more active forms of travel as well. But there's a fair assessment that is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a local authority in terms of reducing our own corporate emissions.
Supplementary, Lord Mayor. Thank you. In line with obviously the new electric vehicles and the green aspects on the policy, do you intend to use any of the money already currently received for sustainable transport to facilitate the possible future use of hydrogen power from our 10 gigawatts, I didn't realise it was that big, hydrogen plant to assist a further reduction of CO2 for the council fleet in utilising this green future energy? Thank you.
If I'm a purist in this case, that was very different from the original question that you asked, which is all about figures, etc. So you've now actually changed the subject and moved over towards hydrogen. So you have an opportunity of moving on or answering.
I'm happy to respond to it, Lord Mayor, if you wish. So the green hydrogen plant at Langage is a really exciting opportunity. It will take some while to construct. Green hydrogen is a relatively new form of renewable energy. And of course, the council will be looking at what opportunities it could relate to our own particular service. But we are talking about quite some time down the future. In the meantime, it's really important that we're doing what we can on electric decarbonisation, which we know is working and delivering, and also on the active travel side of things, which can make a difference within weeks rather than years. Thank you.
Thank you very much for answering both.
Councillor Rainsford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for giving me a second bite of the cherry today. The ward I represent has an extremely large number of private rental properties. Now, some of them are run and managed by very good landlords. Some of those landlords are shocking, and if you talk to some of the good ones, they describe them as almost verging on criminal because the conditions they expect their tenants to live in are appalling. So could I ask Councillor Pemberthy if you could tell us what's being done to encourage and improve the quality of the private rental sector in our city?
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. We're beginning by looking at the sticks and looking at streamlining processes of enforcement, or as officers would say, to expedite outcomes for landlords who fail to provide suitable accommodation. Thank you for the briefing, but we're trying to enforce a bit better. We're also working with South West Landlords Association and provided a whole range of new training courses where we've offered free places. I know that's working with the willing, but if we can get the willing doing better, then we're continually eroding. We are part of the task force to consider a city approach to cold and damp homes. There's a whole section in Plan for Homes 4. We're working with DLUC as well on, damp and mould. We're bringing in new resources to deal with medium and high-rise buildings and reviewing all our policy areas over the next 12 months to ensure that we're doing all of the enforcement and licensing that we are able to do with fines at the appropriate and maximum levels. We continue to react to resident issues across the city, investigating matters and supporting to resolution, and we're recruiting more housing improvement officers, working very closely with the South West Landlords Association to make all of that happen. So we're doing quite a lot. I'm sure we could be doing more, and actually my hat's off to the team for all the work that they have been doing this year and for the way that Community Connections, with all the pressures, are managing to restructure to bring in more frontline staff.
Thank you. You mentioned in that enforcement, I've got a couple of families at the moment on my casework who are getting pretty desperate. I just wondered if you have figures on how much enforcement we actually carry out in the city?
Yes, and our enforcement is against pretty tight statutory guidelines. So quite often when people feel that they should be able to have their landlord enforced, they're not. But to give you some idea of quantum, we've issued 3 civil penalty notices. It doesn't sound very many, but it takes a long time to get to that stage. So we've issued almost £16,000 worth of fines. We've served 70 formal notices. You can see a lot of people are reacting to the formal notices. We've seen 537 dwellings improved. We've inspected 1,016. We've had 127 Category 1 hazards removed. We've got involved with the management of 77 HMOs, had 6 statutory nuisances removed, and referred 20 issues to planning, 25 issues to planning. That's a pretty amazing set of work to improve housing quality in the city. And I know it's not enough. Sadly, the teams are not as big as they used to be. The cut to our revenue support grant means that we are being reactive, not proactive. I'd love to be able to work with the teams and say, let's send a team out to the areas where we know there are big private rented sector issues, and let's be proactive. At the moment, we can't, and that means that there are a whole series of wards where we could be doing more. But as you can see, the team are very actively intervening in substantial numbers of cases every single year to try and improve the quality in the private rented sector.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A question for Councillor Dan, two parts to it really. Is it possible that when we get replies from Councillor Casework, we could know who the author was? Because sometimes the replies raise more questions than they answer, and then there's a bit of toing and froing, which obviously takes up more people's time in the Councillor Casework department. Also, is it possible that more of them could be linked, the replies could be linked to the original email? Because sometimes they come back completely unlinked, and you actually think I've raised several issues of a similar nature. Which one does this refer to? Is there any solution to that?
I'm going to have to check the process on the second part of your question about the linked emails, because I'm not sure. On the first one, I think there is probably a balance between keeping casework within the councillor admin business team and not bombarding officers throughout the council with councillor casework that isn't being tracked, because we want our councillor officers to do the job, and if we don't keep a track of councillors casework, and that's why we set councillors casework up, because councillors were sending emails throughout the council and it wasn't trackable, and it's making sure that from a GDP thing that we know what is being worked on across the council. So I think it sort of answers your question, but in terms of linking it to the original email, I think we'd have to look at the process there, Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watkin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a question for Councillor Lowry. I applaud the work carried out in Keam and the resilience of residents, and there can be no criticism of the work done to avert what would have been a disaster, but bills must now be coming in. Can you tell us something about the financing of the operation, please?
I don't have the specifics as to the actual costs, but we kind of operate under an insurance policy with the government. And when you reach a certain threshold, after that threshold is reached, the bills are then paid by central government as opposed to the local government. But I'm not entirely sure where we are with respect to that figure at the moment, but regardless of whether we are beneath it, we would still have a requirement for us to pay those bills.
So, yeah, is that covered in the budget?
No, it's covered in our what's called usable reserves. So we put a contingency aside every year for bad stuff that happens. So therefore we make an allowance that stuff will happen from time to time that we don't know about. Obviously we don't know about bombs, we don't know about other stuff from time to time. So we have a contingency put aside and we take it from there if and when it's required.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. This is a question for Councillor Coker regarding bus routes. Community connections are really important to reduce isolation. Are the council working with Plymouth City Bus, Stagecoach and other providers to ensure that Plymouth residents are not left isolated by a lack of accessible public transport? By which I mean, are there reviews, is there a review going to be put in place? Because some bus routes that were taken away, unfortunately, sort of last year, are impacting on some residents. And I just wondered whether or not a regular review is carried out to assess whether or not some routes could be diverted or slightly elongated to make sure that residents are not left isolated. Thank you.
Thank you. Isolation of bus routes worry me greatly. It was not my administration that took out £800,000 of the public transport money. But saying that, we've set up a bus operators and users panel, so we are reviewing what is needed in the bus industry. I have cut no bus services this year. I've increased bus services. and I'm sure your colleague in Compton knows that as well, that Compton has had an increase in its bus services. But saying that, I think you raise a really important point, Councillor Harrison, because the bus industry, not only in Plymouth, in the whole of the country, is fragile. We need more support from the current government or future governments, because patronage numbers are down countrywide on bus users, and you don't have to be a mind reader to understand that the future is not rosy. I am happy to talk to you or anyone on bus services, because most of the people on this side know just how much I care about bus services, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone that wants to talk to me about bus services.
Thank you. Obviously, there has been money come from the government to support, but I welcome your offer to talk to me regarding bus services, so that my hope is that if we can extend the routes that allow some people to be able to use the bus routes who are now not able to use them, that's going to increase the patronage. So I do welcome your offer. Thank you.
Finally, Councillor Carlisle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Coker, for reminding me to speak to you. Thanks for the little reminder. I was reliably informed by Plymouth Live, when I just read the article, that Stagecoach are not going to be running the buses to the correct stops anymore, part of the 3031, because of the state of the roads and parked cars. So say like Penley Place and various things, they're moving them around, and I'm just wondering, I'm looking just for confirmation if that's something that Stagecoach are doing, because we kind of need to let the residents know as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're quite right. There has been 2 roads, I believe, that have been causing problems on the reintroduction of that bus route. That is a Stagecoach decision for reliability and also safety, but I'm always open if you feel it's the wrong decision, or you have alternative solutions from any of the Compton councillors. Always happy to listen, Councillor Carlisle.
Thank you, Councillor Coker. Ironically, I was actually there on Thursday, and I've just reported in because one side of Ashford Road has completely eroded, and there's a lot of damage there. So I think it's part of the Ashford Road and then the Penley Place that they're having the problems with. So I think it'd be quite good to come up with a solution, because where they're looking at putting the new stops, and they're also taking away going all the way up through to Mutley as well. So it'd be quite nice if we can have a discussion and work out, can we bring the stops a bit more inwards, because they're going to have to walk quite a trek for it. Thank you.
I'm not sure, Lord Mayor, because everyone I've had today has been a question, then followed by kind of commentary. So I would love to be able to answer a question that wasn't there.
Lord Mayor, I can change it to a question if he wishes.
No, that's enough. Thank you very much. Councillor Coker, yes. Right. Members, are there any more questions? The floor is yours.
Yes, my question, I'm afraid, is to our Councillor Briers-Delve again. And it's a case of I'm a country boy and I'm an environmentalist. And I really applaud the action plan that's been brought forward. I think that's terrific. That is just what we need. But, you know, of course, we all want a greener city. You do. The independents do. Well, they've nearly all gone. Well, the independents, yeah, they've all gone. Okay, and we've got one green here, so that's good. I'd love to see our city's environment further improved. And my question really is, have we a plan to get rid of phosphates, or are we going to continue using them as weed killers? Because that is the only thing which I'm very concerned about for the future. And I know that you guys have discussed it, you're bound to have, because I did when I was in office, and I just wondered if it's been progressed. So thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Councillor.
So I assume you're referring to glyphosate in particular, Councillor Wakeham. So this administration is very conscious about its relation to nature and really making sure we're doing absolutely everything we can to support nature recovery, but to also deliver the level of services that residents expect. And you'll understand from having been in these shoes before that there's a balance to be struck on that topic. I'm pleased that we've piloted pesticide-free alternatives to using glyphosate. We've looked at various different approaches, including flame, including additional manual sweeping and foam. And there are challenges with all of those approaches. All of them are more expensive, typically over 10 times more expensive per metre. Quite a lot of them have additional emissions impacts as well. So although they might be better in terms of their impact on biodiversity, they're worse in terms of what they're doing for the climate emergency in particular. We've been working as a service to reduce the amount of glyphosate used, and I'm sure this is a topic which will come up in our very wide consultation that we'll be doing throughout the rest of this year on nature recovery more widely. Thank you.
Right, councillors, that's the end of questions. Now we move on to the close. This concludes the full business of the full council. As this meeting is the last council meeting of the municipal year, there will be a number of councillors who are not returning. Please can I thank the following councillors for their service to the city and wish them well in their future endeavours. We have, unfortunately not here at the moment, Dr. Cree, Councillor Stoneman, Councillor Bingley, Councillor Patel, Councillor Tuffin, I'm afraid myself. We wish all candidates the best of luck in May. Thank you, members, for your time and engagement. I wish you and all those watching good evening. Councillor Evans.
Well, I just wanted to say, since it's your last meeting as in the chair and your last meeting till you commit to come back when you decided you haven't had enough really, can I thank you for the way you've chaired the meetings this year. I think you've restored some sort of dignity to the chamber that we might have lost. So I'd like to thank you for what you have done. And I hope you enjoy. Well, it did get a bit fractious last year, I think it's fair to say. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for the way you've conducted yourself as Lord Mayor, and have a pleasant retirement. And everybody else who's standing there.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Evans, and all of you. In actual fact, it's been an education, a very pleasant one. One or two, every day's a learning day. No, it has been really, really good. I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed my time, and hopefully I'll be moving on to greener fields in the very, very near future, but still involved in the city, not sat in here, but I still wish to bring good to the city. As a number of you already know that I am vested in the city. I have 4 generations here, and I want this city to be a place where my grandchildren will grow up and love the city as much as I do. So, to conclude now, please have a safe journey home, and we won't see each other in these kind of situations for some time to come, but who knows for the future. Thank you very much.